On episode 283 of the Tennis Files podcast, you'll learn the top takeaways from the show in 2022. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the show. And as you heard from the title and probably read from the description of today's show, today's is a very special one as I looked through the most popular episodes of the show by download numbers. That is the metric that I decided to use, and pulled the best shows that I had from this year. And then I went through each one and selected portions of each show that I thought really had a lot of great and valuable advice that will help you improve your tennis game. And so I'm really excited to unveil these episodes for you today. And let's go with the first one. So the first one is the 5 reasons why tennis players can't serve properly with Peter Freeman. As you'll probably also know, Peter Freeman is a great friend of the show. He's over at Crunch Time Coaching, and he puts out so much great content on his YouTube channels and in other mediums. So in this one, you're going to hear a couple reasons why tennis players can't serve properly. So without further ado, here's that clip.
The second reason why most people never learn how to serve properly is that every time you play a match, you're digging yourself deeper and deeper into that technique hole, okay? Because you're going out there and now you're starting to develop a serve, and you know it's not the right serve, but you're starting to develop a serve that is battle tested. It's what you do under pressure. And so, that starts to really ingrain the muscle memory, because you start out with the wrong grip, you've developed it, and now you're starting to play your matches and you're figuring out how to get a little better and a little better and a little better with the wrong grip. You're starting to learn how to hit a serve a little harder. You're starting to learn how to place it a little better. But at the same time, that serve is only going to go so far. No matter how many buckets of serves you hit, the hitches and glitches that you're developing are going to stay there and get even more ingrained, and no matter how many basket serves you hit, if you have the wrong grip, you're not ever going to really be able to go up there and hit a super aggressive slice or kick serve. You're going to have to poke the ball in. There's a couple of people who can go out there and hit a flat second serve fairly hard and get it in, but there's not too many of them. And so that's what's really tough about playing these matches and also trying to learn to serve the right way. It's a tall order. And, later in this interview, I want to kind of walk people through, well, how do you navigate both? Because I don't want you, if you do love to go play your leagues and you get a lot of social out of there, I don't want to pull you out of league matches for like 2 or 3 years, so you can learn how to serve properly. You don't have to do it like that. Then I'll explain how I'd like you to do it a little later as we get into this.
Pete, I'm really excited for that part because I actually was able to get a lesson with Vesa Punka, who I had on the podcast. I'm trying to remember if it was episode 226, but double check on that. And yeah, he's a great coach, president of Junior Tennis Champion Center, which is in Maryland, and TFO and Kudla and Robin Montgomery. They've all trained there. And so, like I said, I had a lesson with him, and he found out that, one of my flaws is that I don't look at the ball long enough. And very interesting, he noticed that because of that, my body would collapse and I would open up too early, simply by not watching the ball. So I found that to be a really, really insightful lesson. But at the same time, I've had so many USC League matches. I've got a 9-5 men's combo league. I'm on a couple of mixed 9-0 doubles teams. And so it's really tough, when you're playing the match to make even a what seems like a simple change of like just watching the ball throughout, you hitting it on the serve. It's tough, especially when you get at the crunch time. You go back to what you used to do, and like you said, like your strokes may feel really good because you keep hitting them over and over again, but in reality, you may be pulling away even more from what you need to be doing on the other side of the spectrum. So appreciate you mentioning that trap.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So Yeah, let's go to the third reason, Pete.
Okay, so the third reason, we're kind of building these ideas together, and if you do play a lot of tennis, you'll know, and we've all felt this with certain parts of our game. There are certain things that we can get away with and work that we know long term we don't want to keep doing, and so this becomes a really tough thing. So number three, and you have to be honest with yourself, is your ego holds you back from really learning how to serve properly. Again, you might have you get in, you're a beginner at some point. Everybody's a beginner at some point. Then you kind of get the bug, like, I love this. Then all of a sudden you get in a league and maybe you take your lumps the first year and lose a lot of your matches at like 2-5, 3-0. Then all of a sudden you start winning matches at 3-0. And then all of a sudden you quickly learn, if you have decent hand-eye coordination and you just start to get some court sense, all of a sudden, boom, you can just zoom up to the 3-5 level. And then you can start to figure out, okay, there's certain people at the club, like, I got their number, and I walk around the club and everybody knows that when I play Mike or Susan, I own them. Like, I own Mike or Susan. And especially, what if Mike or Susan is somebody that you don't really like that much too? Like, they're just kind of annoying, and we all have those people that
Pete.
even if we do like them, we know that if we ever lost to them, they would run and tell everybody in the club that they got you, even if it's a practice match. So you just can't let down your guard, right? Because we all build up those kind of like a reputation in our little ponds. And so we want to keep our rank. We don't want to lose to somebody that we know we own. And, to start to learn and to change, you might have to take 2 steps back before you even take a step forward. And that's really hard to accept for a lot of people. I'm, again, going to get to how you don't have to take as many lumps as maybe you think you do. But it is a hard thing to kind of put the ego aside and to maybe lose a match or two to people that you really don't want to lose to. But if you look at the greats, they're willing to do that. And they're willing to do it in front of the whole world. And they're willing to do it even when things are going great. Probably the best example I've ever heard, which I couldn't believe, is Tiger Woods when he first came out. Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods right away. Everybody heard of Tiger Woods. He was going to come out of Stanford. He's amazing. And then he backed it up by winning the Masters really fast and just being the best player in the world really quickly. And then I think it was like maybe 2 to 3 years into his career, he had a slump to where he was losing. And everybody's like, what's wrong with Tiger? Because, Tiger is like the best by far. And Tiger said, I'm changing my swing. And they're like, well, why are you changing your swing? Like, you're Tiger Woods. Like, why would you need to do that? He's like, because I want to get better. And when I get this new swing, I'm going to be so much better than I am now. And lo and behold, like the next year after he had a slump, he killed everybody.
And that's an awesome example. And did he, so I guess you said he went through a slump, right? So did he continue playing tournaments as well,
Yes.
even though, okay.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
He continued to play tournaments and he had a rough year, but he kept working on the swing behind the scenes until all of a sudden it could assimilate into match play.
So, I don't know if you want to, yeah, definitely, Pete. And I don't know if you want to go through this yet or hold off till later. But again, the question is, how did Tiger do that? Like, was he just laser focused? And like you said, I don't care what place I get in this tournament, these tournaments, like I'm very conscious about my exact swing pattern and I'm hitting it during the tournament. Or did he still try to win, but then immediately afterwards, like practice 1,000 balls of the new technique? Like, how did that work?
Well, remember, Tiger's going to have a lot more time than the people listening to this podcast. The people, I call these people totally obsessed tennis players. Most of you out there are adults and you love tennis just as much as, Tiger Woods loves golf or Rafa Nadal loves tennis, Just as much as Coco Gauff loves tennis. You love tennis that much, but you don't have the time that they have. You don't have the time that they have to put into it. But you do have some time to get better for sure, and to learn how to do this the right way. And I think we have unrealistic expectations of how to bring it out in match play. That's really what it comes down to. So let me ask you this question, mehrban. If you have this idea, then we can use it even better. If you don't, then I can just go off an example. Have you ever had any kind of invention in your head that you'd go, man, if I could, make that, you don't even have to tell us what it is. You can just say yes, but if you want to share what it is, that'd be even cooler. Like, man, I thought of this idea, sometimes you have those shower ideas. Like if I could sell this thing, I'd make $1 bazillion, right? Have you ever had an idea like that? Have you ever had $1 million idea that you would like to share with the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is it a physical product, like something that would be on a shelf?
Actually, no, it was not. It was an app.
Okay. Is an app. Okay, an app. Cool. An app's perfect. Okay. Do you want to share the app or not, or is that too personal?
No, it's not too personal. And I'm trying to exactly remember what it was. I think it might have been like a GPS app where it also had like social media like elements into it. It was actually it was funny story, like a group of colleagues who are, good friends too. Like we would actually meet like once a month, and we formed this app group, and we were trying to get, we brainstormed different apps, and like we were trying to get each person to do like certain parts of it. And then it just, it never worked. There'd be like one or two people or whatever who wouldn't put in exactly like the amount of work required. And then eventually like we just broke up the group.
Yeah.
So,
you see that it wouldn't work. This is so perfect. So
yeah.
I mean, an app is a great example. So mehrban wants to build a product of an app. Okay. So he's got this great idea. Now, obviously, everybody would want to just snap their fingers and have the app go on people's phone and have it work properly right away. And this is the problem that a lot of adult tennis players have that I see, unfortunately, is you'll watch a YouTube video, you'll get super fired up, and then you'll go, this makes perfect sense. I can't wait to go try my match. Doesn't work in the match. You think there's something wrong with you. Okay. Is this unrealistic? It's just, you have a great lesson with your coach. They show you one little thing on your serve. It works in for that amount of time. And then again, boom, you want to go out there and you want to use it in your match, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. So you start to think there's something wrong with you, but what's wrong with you is your expectations and your process. Like if you are really serious, like if you thought of your tennis game like building an app, or like building a product that you have to sell in Walmart, where people are going to be opening the app, testing the app, clicking this, clicking that. And all of a sudden your reputation is on the line, and you obviously want people clicking and doing this, and everything works seamlessly, and it works, like it's a real product that can stand, people trying it all kinds of different ways. That takes time. You don't notice how I even was asking mehrban, like, do you want to share it? Do you want to give your idea? Because again, a lot of people, they have an idea that they're actually working on. They don't even want to share it with the world. Why? Because it's not ready. They don't want to let the cat out of the bag. They don't want to say what it is. Somebody might steal that idea. They know, hey, before I share this with you, there's a lot of behind the scenes work I need to do to make this thing work right. And so here's my best advice that hopefully will give you some peace of mind on how to really finally develop how to serve properly. Don't put the pressure to reveal your product as soon as you learn a new thing, right? Like if your serve today is just tapping the ball and you're trying to learn how to serve properly, well, go there, no stress at all, and use the serve that works. Go use the product that is working in matches. Keep using that product. Even though it's an inferior product, it works, okay? So keep using that product. And then behind the scenes, you are developing your next level of serve. And you're doing it, working on one thing at a time. If you're going to build an app, you don't build the whole app at once. You're like, okay, I got to build this part. The next thing is I build that part. The next thing is I build that part. And then after I keep with each time I build a part, I got to test it. I got to beat it up a little bit. I got to see if it's going to work. And you do that behind the scenes. Now, once you start to feel it working behind the scenes, then you can go, you know what? I'm going to test the market today. I'm going to bring my serve out and I'm going to try 2 serves the new way in the match and see how it goes. And even do that in a practice match rather than a league match. But everybody wants to see how good they're doing. They think that the true test that they should try as soon as possible is to throw it out there in a match. And that is super discouraging. And it doesn't work. So then people go and they hide in their shell like a tortoise, and they don't ever really come out and finally develop the full thing.
I love that, Pete. So how do we, I guess, if we're developing the serve, behind the scenes, and then we're using what works in the matches, like how, like what ratio do we need for the new technique to overcome the old technique? And are we stunting the potential speed of the growth, of the new technique by still using the old technique, in crunch time? Like, how does that all work?
I don't think you are stunting the growth, especially in the beginning. Here's the thing. Another thing too, and I really want adults to listen to this. But let me ask you this, mehrban.
Yep.
Who do you think learns faster, adults or kids? Who picks up things faster?
I think kids.
Okay. I think you're 100% wrong.
Oh.
I think this is I've worked with tons of kids and tons of adults. And a big misconception is adults are selling themselves way short. We always go, oh, kids just learn so much faster. Kids learn so much faster than adults. They just pick up things like that. No, they don't. I've coached both. Okay. The expectation is different. And I'll tell you too, the best learners in the world, the people that I love working with the most, and that's why I call them totally obsessed tennis players, are the online community. Whenever I've had someone online, think about it, they're watching the videos online, they're buying products online. They're like, I'm going to get on a plane and go train with this person, me. They'll come. I've had a kid come from Turkey. I've had a guy come from Australia. People come from California, Canada, all over. And if you're doing that, that's a serious commitment to go take a tennis lesson. And all you need to do to see how good a learner someone is look in their eyes. And the people who are taking lessons, who are traveling to take a lesson, you look at their eyes, they are 1,000,000% in. They are going to give you the best attention you've ever given in your life. And these are all adults, and they learn faster than the kids. The difference is they don't think time is on their side like kids, like parents even think that the kids are, and grandparents think the kids are. So if a kid, the biggest development ages for a kid, if they're going to be really good, maybe go play college or even get to the pro level, the ages of 9, 10 to that 13, 14 are huge. Okay. They're gigantic. And once they get to 14, 15, 16, yes, they're still developing, but then all of a sudden, if they're going to be good, mind you, they're starting to polish stuff. They're already those hot shots. You're like, man, I want to play like that. They look like they're pros. But as they're learning, especially how to serve, what are parents going to do with a kid who's learning a new serve? Mom, my serve stinks. I'm trying. Oh, just keep going back. You've only been doing this for 3 months. This is going to take you 1 to 2, maybe even 3 years to learn. That's what a good parent is going to tell their kid. And they're right. I mean, usually it takes a kid ages, I would say 9 to 13, 14. Then all of a sudden their serve starts looking good, 14, 15, 16. But their serves didn't look amazing and weren't really, very functional from the ages of 10 to 13. Once all of a sudden they start to get 12 to 13, now all of a sudden it starts to look good. But especially 9, 10, 11, it's like if they can just put spin on the ball, they're excited, the coach is excited, the parents excited, the grandparents excited. That's the kind of expectation you need to set for yourself. That's how you learn. They're not learning faster. It's just you look at the way they learn and a lot more realistic. And here's another thing. It's taken them that long, and they don't have, for a lot of it, they don't necessarily even have a choice if they're going to go to practice. It's just like, okay, we're doing tennis. So they know it's a very structured system. They know, okay, I'm going to go to my clinic 3 days a week. I'm going to get 1 or 2 privates a week. I'm going to play a tournament on the weekend. So they have the system built in that unfortunately a lot of adults don't have the luxury of having. And so they're in a perfect system to learn this. And they also have the right expectation. Like, this is going to take some time, where unfortunately too many adults, even though they're mature and everything, they'll watch a video and think, that's it. I have been missing that. Let me go do that in my match tonight. So you got to flip your mindset a little bit. Think of yourself more like a kid. How would a kid learn? How long would it realistically take a kid to learn? And realize that you'll learn it just as fast, if not faster than they will, not slower.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up some great points there. I mean, a lot of it does come down to, how passionate you are about it, how disciplined you are, and, how excited you are about learning something and how much you put into it. So, I mean, those are really important factors, Pete. So good to consider that.
Great advice as usual from Pete. And this next clip comes from my interview with Brad Gilbert, legendary coach and top 4 ATP player, on developing a no-quit relentlessness, how to close out sets and matches, how to hit the reset button and not let small failures snowball to bigger ones, and more. And to listen to the full interview, you can go to tennisfiles.com/270 and just check out the show notes page for all of the links to each of these episodes. So without further ado, here is part of my interview with Brad. Yeah, 100%, Brad. It's funny you mentioned that. When I was a junior especially, I would just react. I wouldn't be thinking at all about strengths, weaknesses, and then, after interviewing you and amazing other coaches and players, like that's when the gears got going, and able to recognize, patterns and things like that, and weaknesses and such. So as far as developing, one of the things that stood out that you find in Nadal and Djokovic and a lot of the great players is developing a no-quit relentlessness, as you put it in your book. So I was wondering, how do you develop that sort of attitude? I mean, it can't just come out from thin air, right?
I mean, everybody has a different DNA, but obviously, I mean, the greatest, fortitude for tennis is your ability to compete, your ability to, make clear decisions when things are at the highest stakes. Sometimes, like, you see greatness when the match is 5-all in the third. They're not panicking. They're making good decisions. They're thinking about what they're doing. They're actually, more level-headed about what's happening. Things aren't going fast for them. And a lot of times for a lot of players, things are speeding up. Sometimes your decision-making is affected by the score.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%, Brad. And, I was binge watching or binge listening to your, podcast that you had with your son, which was really cool. A lot of great info in there. And, one thing that really stood out was you mentioned, I believe, that, when you were working with Andy Murray, there were like 9 matches in a row or something like that, where he was up 5-4 in a set and he got broken. And I was wondering if you could let us know about the fix for that. What did you tell him? How did he get through it? Because a lot of club players go through the same thing. It seems like we get to match point, we get to, break points, and we just don't convert at all.
It's funny, that was in the summer of 2006 when we started together. And it was incredible how many times he would serve for a set, serve for a match. And it was almost like he willed himself, or you knew what was going to happen. Mm. And this is what does happen to club players and juniors a lot, because we get in our head that we've done this before. We're going to do it again. It's more about the first point. What are we going to execute on our first serve? At that point, Andy, wasn't obviously the player that he became. And there was some, we would talk about a lot of times, that first point, or what you can do, play to your strengths, focus on your opponent's weakness. Sometimes it's, it's finding that balance for a club player and being too aggressive, or, hoping that your opponent is just going to miss. So that is the balance between club players and pros. But I also feel like I used to always tell myself, if I was serving 4 at 5-4, I was, 4 or 5 down. It's funny, when I tried that with Andre, he said, that stupid trick don't work on me. I know I'm 5'4" up. You tell yourself you're down. But believe it or not, a lot of players do play better when they're down or they think they're up against it. But I call most importantly, at least for club players, is making good decisions. What's the strength of your game? What's the weakness of your game? And try to win with the strength of your game. If something's been working, keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And it really is, very commendable how you're able to convince yourself about, being down. And I know you have an episode with Vince Van Patten who plays poker, and I love poker. He's a great commentator as well as former player, tennis player. And I feel like poker players, sometimes that's what they do, when they're bluffing, almost convince themselves like that they have a good hand when they don't. But yeah, I mean, how can we actually do that, would you say? I mean, convince ourselves, because that's obviously key. Like if we don't, like your son said, if I tell myself that but I don't really believe it, then it doesn't work.
Well, the most important thing is if we don't serve it out, it's not letting it magnify into umpteen. See, that's also greatness. What sometimes people ask me about that. It's like great players don't have these bad runs of losing, umpteen games in a row, opposed to like somebody else that's a middle pro or it's a college pro. That one bad game becomes 3, 5, 7. And the big thing is, if we don't close it out, is how to hit that quick reset button. How not to, because most people in the club, if they have 5-4, 40, 15, don't close it out. They lose the set 7-5, or they lose 7-5, 6. They're still thinking about that one shot. So it's learning how to hit that reset button, that refresh button. That like, okay, how did I get to this point where I'm ahead? How can I finish this point? What just happened here? What can I go back to? An unbelievable. Watching Rafa at the U.S. Open. A match that he was unbelievably struggling with against Fanini. Most guys have already lost that match, but it's his competitive spirit that probably goes back to all the way that he was a kid, that he keeps fighting. He keeps, trying to figure something out. And he is the ultimate too, that if he's 5-0 up or 5-0 down, you don't know it.
Yeah.
He also lost the first round to Ricky Hijita. And then same thing. He doesn't let that affect him, that one set becomes 2 sets, how it becomes more. He just keeps competing. And I do feel like a lot of players, a bad run isn't just 1 game, it's 3 games, it's 5, next thing you know, you were 3-0 up and now you're 6-4, 4-0 down. How do you stop that bad run? But most importantly, get back to what was working.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of club players and juniors go away from what's working, or one game, sets off these 5 other matches. I did this, or, it's that negative thoughts that all of a sudden start entering your head. It's tougher said than done, but you got to let that go. Focus on the next game, what's working.
Yeah, I love that, because my question for you was going to ask how to reset, but you talk about like trying to figure out what has been working and go back to that. That's really huge. So another I guess probably a tough question is how do you develop that competitiveness, especially for people who, like you mentioned, Rafa probably developed that from a young age, but how about for club level players who they probably caught the tennis bug late and then now they're all into it. I have friends like this, like they just started a couple of years ago and they're playing like 6-7 times a week, but they want to become, I guess, more competitive and gritty. So at a later age, especially, how do you think, what techniques or training or exercises can we do to like develop our competitiveness more?
It's a good question, but I feel like competing, even when you're practicing, whether or not, if you're working in a group or you're doing drills or you're playing a practice set, when you play matches, okay, they count for a reason. But I feel like playing more.
Mm.
You know, if you're playing, one league, it's 2 leagues, it's 3 leagues. But it's keep competing, because the best way to work on your competing at that level is compete, and then also try to add to your game. Okay, if my second serve is a little bit weak, see if I can improve my second serve. What's my one good shot? My forehand. Or my weakness is my backhand. Try to minimize that. It's always something trying to add to your game, which helps. But competing is, something that some people will say, geez, it's a piece of cake in practice. I can't do it in the match. It's vice versa. I can do it. I feel like every time you're out there, it's a good opportunity to compete. But match play is where you learn it. And, you got to keep doing it more if you can. More is better than less.
Yeah, definitely. Just getting in that same environment where you're trying to succeed, which is, a serious match play tournament and whatnot. So kind of switching topics a little bit. When I interviewed James Blake, he mentioned that before every match, he would visualize like specific points and like how he would play them and such. And he said that helped him a lot. I was curious, like what your approach is, regarding that. Would you do that type of visualization and, any other sorts of like pre-match preparation that you might think would be helpful for club level players?
It's funny is like when I was a kid and when I played, I call it back in the Stone Ages. I mean, obviously we didn't have the computer and we didn't have going to YouTube and visualize. I would always just, heck, we didn't have a phone. I mean, I would make some notes. Sometimes look at some notes of things that maybe I've written about, especially when I started doing a lot more in college in my early pro career when I was traveling by myself. When I would watch players play, a lot of times I would always make notes about players' strengths and weaknesses. And then sometimes that, you're playing somebody, you take a look at such and such got a great wide serve, backhand maybe breaks down. Try to just kind of look up, I always would think more about my opponent's strengths and weaknesses and what I would try to, maneuver to make them happen for me. So I always thought, but I was most surprised when I was in college that how many players that I played with in college would worry so much about the result, almost panic about the result before it would happen. And I was always be like, are you fucking kidding? Why are you so worried about, losing? Or if I lose today, they would always enter. And it's like, no, just focus on what you need to do to be successful, what you're trying to do. I never think about losing. I never would tell myself if I do X, Y, and Z, it would guarantee I would win either. But I certainly wouldn't want to think about that fear of losing. Yeah, it ultimately can happen. But I think worrying about it, and I was surprised how many players worried about that. And actually probably made me better because I actually didn't worry about it, didn't panic about it. Maybe I didn't feel good about it playing Lendl, but if you feel like, okay, you know what, I've worked hard, I've practiced hard. It's no guarantee I'm going to win, but I'm going to think about the positive. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to serve wide to his forehand. I'm going to attack his backhand. So I just think about the little strengths and weaknesses that you could control, not think about losing, and I also feel like too many people would think about if I do this, this, and that, I'm going to win. I deserve to win. A lot of people, I deserve to win. Why do you deserve to win? Well, doesn't your opponent deserve to win as well? So I think these things that you can control, and I do think another thing I call is really important, all levels, short-term memory loss.
Yeah.
Let it go. And don't let, when you've blown up a match, that next time that's all you think about, that because you blew one match doesn't mean you're going to blow 5 or 6. I always feel like if you got into the winning position, you're doing something right.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I guess a bit more on that, like say when you've blown a match, and I know you talked about this with Serena as well, like having a 3-setter and, the way that she reacted is like incredible as opposed to people getting destroyed from losing a close match. But yeah, how do you react
because it's ingrained in a lot of people, like when they lose a tough match, like they're just so down. So what's your immediate advice? Like, what should we think about next?
Okay, everybody's different on how they process it, but most importantly is the short term is, you know, what are we going to do about practice? What are we going to do about getting ready and start focusing on what's upcoming?
Yeah.
And now with YouTube and getting matches, players can, and their coaches, even club players can take a look at some of their decision making. There's some of these apps now that if you, hang your phone up, I see club players doing it, that you can look at some of your decision making. I think this can be helpful. Sometimes it also can make you crazy. But I think more than anything is letting go what happened. Try to think about there were some positives there. Let's work hard and get after the next one. But I think attitude is really important.
Yeah, most definitely, Brad.
And also, I'd like to tell you, listen, I remind the players, me and we don't always have all the answers. There's nothing guaranteed. But you know what? Having a good attitude and just being able to get back out there next time and try and compete and try to have like an empty canvas where you don't have this like doom is going to happen again.
Right. 100%, Brad. Kind of switching a little bit for a moment to the tactical part of things. I was wondering, and you talk about this, how sometimes club players have it in reverse, where when they're in like a tough spot, they're like on the run. That's when they go for the big shot, and then when the ball's in the middle of the court, short ball, that's they end up pushing it. But I was wondering, what are a couple of strategies or tactics for players, club level players, to reduce the amount of errors that they make? Because you have Craig O'Shaughnessy, I've interviewed a few times too. He talks about how like 70% or so of points end in errors and things like that. So what are some ways we can reduce errors without pushing the ball?
Well, first of all, I see more from the 3-5-4-0 in the center of the court. They're arm enough away from their body where they can even take a good swing. And also, too, from the middle of the court, a lot of players relax for a second. They hit that pause button. Oh, I'm okay here. But no, they're not proactive with their feet, don't get the spacing, and then they can't get aggressive. And a lot of times the ball ends up playing them. So that is an area, you want to watch Rafa, watch Fed, watch their feet, watch Serena when the ball's hit down the middle. Watch how they do those little pitter-patter, steps to create space. They don't waste time, even though they have time. So I do think that's one area, and you can practice that. Like with a ball machine, maybe, having a bunch of balls hit down the middle, have a couple of seconds pause in between each one, and really work on your forehand down the middle of the court, opening up the court. I could take the lead to the left or the right. And I also feel like a lot of players just overestimate maybe their skills when they're on the run a little bit. I call it they're going for 1 in 10, 1 in 20 winners. That's when maybe, as Craig says, errors kill you. But you don't get 3 or 4 points for a screaming winner when you're on the run. We're not Djokovic. We're not Nadal. We're not these great players that can do things on the run. So be sensible. Every once in a while, you got a 40-love lead to work with. I understand pulling the trigger. But other than that, try to stay in the point. And I also feel like, too, if you do have decent spacing, don't fear the middle shot. And then that's the time to be aggressive. That's actually the chance that, that maybe I have a chance to do something, especially like on a weak second serve. Just pick a big target and go for a big shot. I say, don't aim for anywhere near the lines, maybe a 4x4 box, go aggressive, big target.
Got it. Beautiful. Great stuff there. Appreciate it. And Brad, another topic that I came across, I'm trying to remember if it was on your podcast or in the book, but you talk about how to set a series of small goals. So I was wondering, what's the optimal way for us to set goals as club level players, do you think, so that we can, progress and add to our toolkit without putting too much pressure, so that we just think about the results all the time?
Okay, a big goal, let's say if you're a 3-0, is to get to 3-5. A 3-5, you get to a 4-0. And it comes by obviously winning matches and improving your game. Like I would always set, if I'm going to play 5 tournaments, maybe instead of thinking I'm going to win this, that, I would set a number. Let's see if I can win, 17 matches. Start with a small goal like that. So, okay, so let's see what my record was last year. If I was 12-8 in doubles, let's see if I can go 14-6. If I was 11-7 in singles, let's see if I can go, 13-5. Let's see if I can improve my serve, just a little bit, and my return. Just small little things, but whatever you did, you just try to set it a little bit more. Say, this year I'm going to really add, my forehand, being a little more aggressive from the center court. I really want to work on my second serve. I do think at some point during the year, for all players, we can take maybe 1 month block to where we're, okay, I'm really going to put a little, I'm not going to just work on my second serve or just work on my return, but I'm going to put a little period of time where I'm going to really just put an emphasis on this one shot I want to try to improve and add that into my practice or at the end of my practice every time.
Thanks, Brad. And this next clip is from one of my favorite podcast guests, Dr. Mark Kovacs. He's just brilliant. He's a sports performance expert and runs the Kovacs Institute, among many other things. Also the ITPA, the International Tennis Performance Association, with his wife, Mary Jo. And in this clip, we talk about how adult tennis players can improve their fitness with limited time and how to structure your weekly workouts. And I think you're going to get a lot of value from this one. And as with all the episodes, you can go to the full interview for this one. And this particular one is at tennisfiles.com/235. So enjoy this clip with Dr. Mark Kovacs.
I do want to try and focus today's episode on adult competitive players and how they can improve their fitness training. And I was wondering, we have this common prototype of adult players who really want to improve their fitness, but they're constrained by time. And so I was curious, if we could just give, if I could give you just like a common scenario of an adult player who has maybe like 5 to 6 hours per week, and they want to figure out, how much time to partition in between, like actually like playing tennis and, your mobility and flexibility and, maybe some agility. And then you've got, resistance training and other things, recovery. So I was curious if you could kind of give us some guidance, or these players some guidance into how they can best kind of allocate that and any other factors that they should think about when allocating that time towards different activities.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's actually something we spend quite a bit of time on. We've got a fellowship program at the Institute, and one of our fellows this year is actually spending their entire time on the adult recreational player and the fitness programming around that. So there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. One is, what are your deficiencies? Because you want to personalize it a little bit to yourself. If you've got, say, good endurance and you were maybe a former athlete that ran a lot and you've got good cardiovascular endurance, and that's not an area that really needs a lot of your time, then you can pull that off the training list a little bit, or make it lower down on the priority list, which is good. Or you may have really good strength in general, and you're just a strength athlete that you like to lift weights, you lift weights all the time. That's something you enjoy. So that's going to sort of be in your program, but you don't have to overemphasize it because you already have a good level of it. And that's usually what I first recommend, is do a needs analysis on yourself, understand what are the areas that you need to get better in, go to a resource, a coach, a trainer, someone that has experience, and ask them, what are the areas that I'm sort of lacking or that could help my tennis more? It could be mobility, it could be strength, it could be endurance, it could be power, and then prioritize your list of training. That's first and foremost, because you can't do everything at the max level. Most people don't have time to do that. So that's the first step. Then based on that, you want to make sure when you do strength training, traditional kind of strength exercises, lunges, things like that, you want to hit that at least twice a week at a bare minimum, Ideally, you want to try to get 3 sessions in. There's a lot of very good research showing that 2 sessions a week, let's say a total body strength training workout, provides a lot more benefit than 1 session a week. But 3 sessions a week is even better, obviously, than 2. But the difference between 2 and 3 isn't as high as the difference between 2 and 1. So at a bare minimum, 2 sessions a week needs to be on the schedule. That's really, really important. Then as you age, you know that you lose power. You lose muscle mass after mid to late 30s. It starts to drop pretty significantly if you don't train. So you need to put in the training. But power is one of those areas that most older players don't spend enough time doing power training. Then that's something that you get a lot of really good benefit. The only challenge is you got to be a bit careful because you've got to build up to those movements and make sure that you're doing them with good technique. So typically, if you're going to do it based on hours, and I don't love giving recommendations always by hours because it doesn't take into account quality or even quantity of what the work is. But in general, most people think in time. So if you're trying to strength train at least 3 hours a week, if you can get, strength training, and that includes warm up for the strength training, that includes a little bit of cool down. That may even include, say, a lot of your injury prevention work as well. So when I say 3 hours, your whole session may be, let's say, an hour at a time, but you do 20 minutes of heavier strength work, 20 minutes of speed and power type work, and then you've got 20 minutes of warm up, cool down, and some injury prevention stuff. So that's sort of a bare bones minimum level of 3 hours on that. Then definitely want to do some mobility and stability training. And the older you are, the more of that you need to do. So usually recommend at least 3 sessions a week of about 20 to 30 minutes. So then you're at 4.5 hours. And then if you've got a couple extra hours a week, then you can put in around that maybe some more on-court movement stuff. Or if you need a bit more endurance work, you can do more endurance work. But 4.5 hours a week, you can get a really, really great program into your training program. And then anything above that, you can really focus in on areas that you're trying to take to another level.
Awesome stuff, Mark. Really appreciate that. I jotted down some follow-up questions. First off, I was just curious, from a physiological standpoint, I guess, if that's even the right word, the 1 session a week versus 2 sessions, I was wondering why, what is the reason that there's such a huge jump between 1 to 2?
It's a great question. And a lot of this was strength training specific research. So it's looking at muscle fiber recruitment. It's looking at the ability to hit a certain area of the body on multiple occasions to get the adaptation. So it's got a lot to do with the physiological response to stress. And, physical training is stress. And we have to understand the difference between anabolic and catabolic processes. And simply put, when you're working out, when you're training, you're actually putting your body into a catabolic state or a breakdown. You're breaking down your body every time you train physically. But you give it time to recover, which spurs the anabolic process, and that's the muscle growth, muscle repair, and the adaptation to an imposed demand. So the more times you can get an imposed demand on those areas, the more adaptation you get, the better results you have. That's why training 2 times a week is better than training 1. Training 3 is better than 2, but then you also get a diminishing returns. As you train more times per week, you actually push your body. If you're doing the same workout, let's say if you're doing the exact same total body routine, if you do it 4 or 5 or 6 times a week, you actually can, 1, injure yourself potentially and overtrain, but 2, you don't get the same response. The body doesn't adapt as well if you do too many sessions a week on the same thing. So that's the real reason why, and some of the research behind why 2 times a week is sort of that minimum sweet spot. And definitely a lot better than one time per week.
Thanks, Mark. And is there any advantage besides, time constraints to doing a full body workout versus breaking it out into certain body areas or parts?
Yeah, so no, there's a lot of ways you can split up programs. And, with the athletes I work with, we change the routines based on their time abilities, their areas of focus, the needs analysis. So the most common is a total body workout because a lot of it is time. People want to go in and get a full session done at once. You can do the same exercises, so let's say a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Monday, Thursday, or a Monday, Thursday, Saturday. So you give a day or two in between, and it's simple. That's why people like it. But a lot of what we do is we try to get in the weight room or the gym more than 2 or 3 times a week. So we may be in there 5-6 days a week, but doing different things. So we may do, some people like doing an upper and lower body split. I don't often do that with tennis players. I do that with other sport athletes and individuals. But with tennis, because it's so important to hit the lower body so frequently because it's a movement sport, we usually have a lower body emphasis on every workout with an upper body component. But then sometimes you can do a front and back side of the body split as well. That's a relatively common way of doing it for certain sports. Again, not so much on tennis because we need to do a lot of posterior chain work, back side of the body work. So doing front side of the body and back side of the body is a traditional bodybuilding split model, which I don't personally utilize very much for athletes, but it's something that you may hear about. The other areas that I do split it, how we do it a lot is we actually have a power focused day, meaning that a lot of what we work on that day is power focused. So, lighter weight, more explosive movements. Then we have a heavier strength day where we actually go heavier, less reps, heavier weight, and that's a focus. And then we have another day where for most athletes, we'll do a tennis-specific endurance circuit. This is looking at more endurance work, but with a strength component. So can you do, say, 20 lunges with light weight in different directions without fatiguing? That builds up a little leg endurance work. So that's usually how we set up our weeks. It's an undulated, periodized model. And the reason we do it is we can increase and decrease the volume and intensity if an athlete has a tournament that week or if they don't. Because a lot of the athletes that we work with may play 15 to 25 tournaments a year, some even a bit higher than that. And we need to continue building throughout the year. So we'll do weeks where it'll be very heavy on the volume and the intensity. And then there'll be weeks where our volume will be a lot less. Still relatively high intensity, but if their normal total volume for that week, I'll give you like an arbitrary number, is 800 on our scale. A tournament week, and it's an important tournament, their volume may be 150. So it's significantly less, but they're still doing something. But their real goal that week is to be fresh for the tournament, focus on recovery, focus on getting the body to play at the highest level possible.
Got it, Mark. So, in the USA League world, I guess, we have certain really important tournaments, if you will, I guess, like regionals and sectionals and nationals. So can we similarly then use this undulating periodization model to ramp down during around that time of the tournaments, basically? Yeah,
exactly. That's the beauty of it, is you can ramp up or down from week to week, which is what tennis needs to do. We don't have the luxury always of, with leagues, it's a little bit easier than, say, a traditional, junior tournament or professional tournament schedule, because you sort of know when those events are, a season out. You know sort of majority of the time when your matches are, unless you're in a flex league. If you're in a flex league, it's a little more challenging. But a traditional league, you sort of know you may have a match on Saturday or you have a match on Tuesday, and that's your day for matches. So you could build your training around those match days, which is awesome. It's similar to college tennis in that respect. You sort of know when your matches are. You sort of know the teams that you're playing, and if you know your level and you've played in a certain league for a few years, you sort of know which teams are better, which teams aren't as good most of the time. So you can actually even prioritize. And this is what we do with our college teams that we work with. We prioritize matches. So if we're playing a certain club and they're always really good, they always recruit well, they always have good players, they're going to be a priority one, meaning that we got to be playing at our best. We may not train as hard that week off court because we want to be as fresh as possible for that match. But we know we're going to play another match the following week that they're not always as good, and we should be able to win pretty well there. So we're going to train through, in a way, that week. and we're not going to adjust our workload down to be fresher for that match because we know we've got bigger matches coming up, and we treat it more as a training week. So you can do the exact same kind of professional or collegiate schedule for an adult league player and team as, you know, some of the best players in the world do. And that's the beauty about tennis, is just because your level of tennis and the type of tennis you're playing maybe isn't on TV doesn't mean you can't train like the pros.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate, experts like you bringing that knowledge to us, how we can use the pros training in our routines. Regarding posterior chain work, I just wanted to highlight that, and just for the viewers and listeners that don't quite know exactly what that is, could you kind of explain that, and then maybe like what types of exercises would constitute posterior chain work?
That's a great comment to make, because posterior chain is really just describing the backside of the body. So when you're thinking about posterior chain, it's really a little bit of the lower back, the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves, and it's usually the need to improve the strength in those muscle groups, because most athletes, and especially in tennis, because of how the sport's played, our body weight is always shifted forward. We're always in that ready position. Our coaches always tell us, get in the ready position, be in that athletic stance, the return position on the return of serve, the volley position, get low, lean forward. All those things that we are taught on the tennis court shift the weight forward into the front side of our body, or the anterior chain muscles, which are the quads, the hip flexors, things like that. And those are very strong typically just by playing tennis. You strengthen those. Our backside of the body, the posterior chain, unfortunately doesn't get a lot of extra work when we play. So there's becomes this discrepancy between the front side of our body and the back side of our body. And if you increase that discrepancy over time, you start getting major imbalances, and you get a lot of knee-related pain, hip-related pain, because of this strength differential. So why we say we do a lot of posterior chain work is we're trying to limit that difference between what the sport's forcing us to do in being in those good ready positions, but it's also needing us to strengthen the backside of our body, or the posterior chain. So we usually recommend a minimum of 2 times as many posterior chain movements as anterior. And for many of our athletes, we'll actually do 3 times. So when we say 3 times, for what we're talking about is we're going to do 3 times as many hamstring focused exercises as quad focused exercises. So that's a way to try to offset all the extra work that we're getting on court, moving, and also the historical adaptations that we've had over many years of playing. So when we say posterior chain, typically what we mean is hamstring related strengthening exercises, glute related strengthening exercises. So think of things like, if you're familiar with strength training, various Romanian deadlifts or deadlift variations that put a lot more emphasis on the hamstring, glute strengthening work such as hip bridges, things like that, various things, hip thrusters. There's all sorts of variations of exercises you can do to target that backside or posterior side of the body.
Thanks, Mark. And are there any tests or any ways to figure out, I don't know, how much of a ratio we need? I know you mentioned minimum is 2-to-1 for posterior to anterior chain, but any sorts of tests or ways to figure that out?
So we have some equipment and technology we utilize to actually test hamstring strength, quad strength, things like that. It's not so easy to do on your own from a pure strength test standpoint. So you want to do a few different things. First off, for most people, what I say is do a wall sit, and everyone can do a wall sit. I think most people are familiar with that. Make sure that your knee angle though is at 90 degrees when you're sitting there, meaning that the angle is like this. If this is your backside's not high like that. It's actually at that 90 degrees, and that's the position. And if you can hold that for 60 seconds, usually means your quads are pretty strong. And you may have some reasonably good stability on your glutes. So that's step one. If you can do that, then you do have to somewhat be concerned about your hamstring strength, because most of the time people that are really good at that means that their quad strength and development is reasonably good. The next thing that you want to sometimes do is perform a hamstring hip lift, and it's hard to sort of demo it here, but basically you're trying to put your foot on the ground on one leg, heel on the ground, and then the other leg points straight in the sky, and you want to lift yourself up using your hamstring. And if you can do 10 of those without shaking, usually means you've got reasonably good base hamstring strength. Above and beyond that, then you have to start adding resistance to test things out and to see how comparable you are. The one thing is, if you were going to do, let's say, a squat compared to a RDL, which is, pretty much an opposing movement in some respects on the body parts that they're focused on, they're not going to have a one-to-one strength relationship. It's not going to be like if you can do 100 pounds on one, you should be able to do 100 pounds on the other. It doesn't really work that way based on the levers of the body and how your body, especially your hips, hinge. So you can't do a direct comparison from that standpoint very easily. What we do is we have some technology that measures strength in certain movements, and you can do some comparisons that way. But this kind of gives you a sense of you want to do more hamstring and posterior chain work. And that's why we usually use some rules of thumb based on what we know about tennis athletes. Most tennis athletes are sort of similar creatures, especially if they've played a lot. They have similar limitations, similar restrictions, similar areas where they're strong, similar areas where they're weak. The challenge becomes if players pick up tennis late, you don't always know what they look like, or if they've played multiple other sports at a relatively high level, that may have developed certain muscle groups in a very different way.
All right. This next clip comes from my interview with Dylan Sykes, who is a great player. He's a 5-0 player. And we talked a lot about a lot of very impertinent topics to your game, such as enjoying tennis and having gratitude, rekindling your love for tennis after getting burned out, which is something that Dylan had to do, how to train like a pro, and the keys to a pro-level fitness routine for club-level players, which, as you learn, is something that Dylan underwent, rather. And this one is from episode 232. And Dylan also puts out a lot of great content on the web and on Instagram as well. So always enjoy checking out his stuff. And here is part of my interview with Dylan.
It's so much more free, where it's just the only reason why I'm playing tennis now is because I truly have a love for the sport. And I feel like I refound that love after college, because there's no other reason for me to be playing right now. It's not really a monetary value. I just like swinging the racket around and smacking some balls. So it definitely, I found a new love for it. And I think just separating yourself from the tennis is such a big thing.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Dylan, because I was putting together like a best of 2021 episodes, and there's a mental game expert named Joey Johnson. I forget the exact episode name. I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, he was talking about how, one of the biggest mistakes is how people, they attach their self-worth to tennis, which I'm pretty sure I did this in the juniors too. So it's like, you lose a match and you feel like as a person you're like worse person because you lost. So right. I think that's a big thing that you mentioned as well that I want to definitely highlight. Good stuff, man.
It's so easy to do that as well, because especially when you're a kid, like most of your competition and the place where you feel the most anxiety can be on that tennis court. And so anytime I work with juniors, I am preaching to make sure that they're actually just enjoying the experience, because half the enjoyment of going to these cool, like say you go down to Florida for a national tournament, like you're going to Florida for a national tournament, like that's pretty cool. Like let's separate the fact that you're going to go play some tennis down there. Maybe you got a bad draw, you play the 1 seed, but like you're going to go play some tennis down in Florida. Like you're getting this opportunity. You need to understand, like, what are your friends doing this weekend? They're just hanging out. Like, really be in the moment and be very, very present, as opposed to like it's just tennis.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah, and again, like one of the best of episodes like was with this the president of JTCC Junior Tennis Champion Center, where like TFO, and Kudla train and so forth. And like one of the things he mentioned, was that as well, just having like gratitude about being able to play. And he actually like puts his players in contact with like their Special Olympic athletes and Paralympic athletes, like so that they, obviously, just like have a friendship, but also then they realize like, wow, like I'm, able to like physically do everything, and like I should just be
Right.
grateful for the chance to even play the sport. So yeah, love that, and a big lesson there. So in terms of like regaining your love for tennis, like I remember actually like being burnt out after college tennis. I went to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and played there, all 4 years. And then I went to law school, and like I didn't touch a racket for like 3 years. But then it was like USC leagues that got me back in it. Well, I'm actually my best friend who got me back into USC leagues. Well, for the first time anyway. So what was it about tennis that like that you got re-inspired about, that like you gained a love for, that maybe it could help other people who are a little bit burnt out and don't realize like how great tennis is?
Yeah, I think my journey was a very emotional one. I'd seen you just fresh. I mean, freshman year didn't come in really with the best attitude in terms of being able to deal with those on-court pressures. I was dealing with a lot of personal things at home as well. And I was bringing that onto the tennis court, as well as bringing what happened on the tennis court back off of it. And it just was a whole jumbled blur. I think sophomore year, that summer, I kind of started to get my act together in terms of this is what I really want to do. I wasn't really in the lineup. Maybe if I was, maybe 5 or 6 and get taken out. And it was just kind of back and forth. Didn't really have that consistent starting spot. And then junior year, I got into some trouble with the school, and I got suspended for a year. And that was tough. That was tough because, I mean, it was no one's mistake but my own. And so I had to go through that year kind of like realizing, okay, Dylan, like most people who get in trouble with the school and get suspended for a year, they quit the sport. They're like, that's it, I'm done. And my opportunity to come back would be my senior year right before the conference finals. And so I started training while I was suspended, and I was able to work on some other aspects of my life in terms of making sure my grades were right, making sure I was getting some internships. I studied computer science in school, so
nice.
I was working at a contracting company that was working with NASA. So it honestly, it might have been, now looking back, the best thing for me to like take my head out of tennis just for like a whole year and focus on some other aspects of my life, to realize like tennis is important, but there's other stuff out there that also needs your attention. And so finally, when I came back right before the conference tournament and was able to play. And the biggest thing there was that the only reason I was back was because I wanted to be back. And it's maybe a control issue on my side, but it's very important for me to be in control of when I'm playing and when I'm not. And I remember my college coach had asked me, he said, Dylan, I just realized it's a whole mentality after you've graduated. And even in your game, you can see it when you're hitting the ball is completely different. And I was really honest with him, and I told him, hey, it really bugged me that I could put in 100% of work here and just be killing it, maybe doing better than this guy. And then this guy gets the chance to play and I don't. And that would bother me so hard, because it's like, why did I work so hard? And then you kind of keep working hard. You're not really feel like you're getting the opportunities. And of course, I'm looking at that through a mentality of like a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid who, I mean, as you know, the mentality like greatly exponentially changes each like 2 weeks. So it's tough to, I mean, obviously I probably wasn't making the best mental thought process and analysis in my head then, but the biggest thing was being able to come out of college knowing that tennis is on my own terms now, and that it is completely up to me if I want to play well, how much I want to train. I'm going to get exactly what I put into it. And then also, I kind of had like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, which maybe is not the best way to motivate yourself, where I never really felt like I had that respect maybe around that Richmond area of like, Dylan Sykes, he's actually a pretty good tennis player. It's kind of always, and maybe this is not the case, right? I don't think this way now, but I definitely had that thought that, oh, he's not that really good tennis player. There's some other people up there. And I always wanted to be in the conversation of that top spot. And so there was a little bit of that, a little bit of a chip on my shoulder that kind of motivated me to go crazy when during the whole COVID time when we got furloughed. And I was a madman training like a professional player. It was nice. It was fun. But yeah, definitely a little bit of chip on the shoulder, definitely be able to control my life a little bit more. And college taught me a lot, definitely about myself and how I like to do things. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I had some similar rough times, like I remember a season where I was like kind of mostly out of the lineup, and it was,
Right.
just a big test of like, trying to be a team player and all that, and trying to help the
Right.
team and still practice and stuff. So I feel you on that. But yeah, it could be tough, having personal issues. Like I remember a teammate who's, unfortunately one of the parents passed away, and like
Oh,
she was like, yeah, it's really tough. And then, this person was really like, just like had random blow ups, like just like screaming and hitting the ball on the fence and stuff like that. It was just like way out of character. So, I can totally understand, like, especially as a young adult, I guess, like, having these issues spill over to your tennis and stuff. But yeah, that's interesting. And I like I said, I really love like all the content that you're putting out there, and like what inspired you to actually record these matches and put them out there for the world to see?
yeah. So it was probably 6, 7 months after my last college match, and I kind of really hadn't picked up a racket. It was more focused on, okay, let me get a job now. Okay, now I got the job. Now let me learn how to do this whole adult thing. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still in the process. I don't know how to be an adult yet, but we're working on it. But coming out of college, 21,
Same.
22, got this job, trying to figure out how to be an adult, still living at my parents' house, and so tennis was not really. It wasn't really a priority. And then I think someone convinced me to join some 5-0 team, and I was just like, whatever, fine, okay, that'd be good. I'll play tennis at least once a week, and we'll go out there, and it'll be fine. And I remember I played this guy named Andrew Christensen, and he actually has a YouTube channel, iRacer Tennis. I don't know.
Oh, I've seen him. His channel. Yeah. Cool.
So he comes on out, and we played this crazy 3-set match, and he's got the camera out there the whole time, and I saw what he was doing there, and I was kind of talking to him, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so then I kind of started looking into like camera stuff, and kind of started filming the stuff on my phone. And then I realized that people really enjoy watching amateur tennis, because the pros, I mean, they're almost perfect all the time. And I actually don't watch that much professional tennis because I think it's kind of depressing how good they are. It's because like you go out there and you're like, oh man, I played so well, and then you realize that guy would have told you in about 45 minutes.
Yeah, they're like 10 years younger than you and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started kind of slowly messing around with some content stuff and realizing that, like, there's actually an audience for this, and seeing how well Andrew had done, and then kind of slowly integrating with other content creators. But I mean, it's a long journey. Making tennis content is definitely not easy. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll ask you more about that. I was curious, did Andrew ask you like for permission to record, or did he just like put it out there?
He did. He did ask,
cool.
and I always ask too. There's never a time where I'm secretly filming something, because that's not the reputation that you want around. And I was like, yeah, man. Most of the time, what I found is that, especially if it's junior players and even adults, they are like more than happy. Like, oh yeah, throw it up there. Do you want me to talk to the camera? Like, they want to know if they need to engage, because as tennis players, I feel like we really don't get that opportunity to see ourselves play. And it's so important. I mean, football players, basketball players, they're always watching film. They're always watching tape. They're constantly seeing their mistakes, direct, immediate feedback. Tennis players were like, bend your knees more. I don't understand how you don't see this. And then you finally go watch a video and you realize you're on your tippy toes, and you're like, well, why didn't someone just tell me this like 4 or 5 years ago? It's so important to see yourself play. So I've found almost no resistance to filming matches.
Yeah. I've only had one person who said like, I prefer not to, but vast majority are cool with it. Even like, some like 40 and 50-year-olds are like, oh yeah, cool. You know what? This one question that I kind of skipped over, even though it's like not quite in the flow of this question series, I guess. But like,
all good.
Cool. So you mentioned that you trained like an animal during COVID times, like, which still going on. But what can you give us some insight? I'm curious, like, what your training was like.
It's actually kind of, all right. Yeah. So I got furloughed probably, let's see, maybe February of 2020. Maybe, February, early March of 2020. And my entire idea was, okay, Well, I just started really gotten back into tennis and was like kind of starting making more YouTube videos. And I'm like, I'm going to use this time very, very effectively. So I'd wake up in the morning and I would make sure I'd apply to at least 10 different places so I could get the adult part out of the way before I go do my Dylan stuff. And so it'd be in the morning. I would either be in the gym for about 30 to 40 minutes. I would then go play some tennis. Usually in the morning was more drills and drill focused and hitting with a lot of juniors at the time, because I've always found that juniors are willing to stay out there for 2.5 hours and just drill under the sun. Then you go home, get something to eat, and then in the afternoon would be some sort of match play of some sort. So fitness in the morning, drills in the morning, eat, match play in the afternoon, and then kind of just rinse and repeat. And then also during that time, there was a ton of UTR tournaments, just an absolute ton, because the ITA circuit was out for the college students. So they were sending people on this summer ITA circuit, and there was just so much tennis all over the place. And so I was able to play like really good people and had some close wins against some really, really good D1 players. And it made me feel like,
nice.
I still got it. I'm still here. But it was quite intense, and I was very, 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 very motivated and diligent about my training. I had this. His name is Jim Cohen. He's in the Richmond area. He's probably one of the best fitness trainers I know. He's got me in the best shape of my life 4 or 5 times over. And so him and I were working very closely that summer. And he's like, every time we'd be out there, I'd say, like, Jim, I don't really know why I'm doing this to myself. And he's like, there doesn't have to be a reason. Do you enjoy it? And I do. I'm kind of a little bit of a fitness nut. So it was gym, drills, eat, and play.
Ballin', man. Love that. So can you share with us like maybe a couple, 1 or 2 things that your fitness coach like maybe changed or implemented in your fitness routine that you think like really helped you?
So definitely like doing like quick agility drills. Like a lot of people will. So I don't think there was all right. So there wasn't really anything specific that he's doing that's anything crazy, but I think it's more about the mentality on why you're doing it. People will do those spider drills where they're running baseline and they run over to the corner of the service box, but I don't think they really understand why they're doing it, and they're just running through it to get it done, as opposed to understanding that when you're going for a ball out wide, you need to be cutting that ball off as an angle, and that's why you're working on running that lateral forward motion. And so a lot of people, they're just running these drills and they're like, I'm doing all these fitness and ladder drills and it doesn't make sense. I saw this video on Instagram the other day. They're like, why do ladder drills? And then he's like hitting a ball. It's like intuitive tennis. He had like this ladder drill out. He did a ladder drill. And then he's like, how does this help my volleys? And doing the same footwork while he's trying to hit the volley. Like, if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense. And so you got to understand, like, why am I doing these ladder drills?
Yeah.
You're doing these ladder drills for when you hit a 130 mile per hour serve to their backhand, they immediately block it back. And then you need to quickly get your feet around that return because the return's coming back really fast. That's why you're doing a ladder drill. So your feet can easily quickly move around that ball to hit that next +1 shot. And so it was really understanding the mentality on why we're doing these drills, why this is going to help my game. If it's not, don't do it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, I've talked to like Dean Hollingworth, for example, as a fitness coach, and he's coached some professional players, and that was one of his like biggest things too. Just like, you do see a lot of like different posts like where people are doing like crazy stuff or like huge box jumps or whatever, and it just doesn't really apply a lot of times to. You have to make it tennis specific. So I really like that piece of advice, man.
And in this next clip, you might hear a very familiar voice, one that introduces the podcast and asks all the questions. That's right. It's from one of my solo episodes on the 5 most common mistakes that 3-0 to 4-5 doubles players make. So in this clip, I'm going to talk about several of these common mistakes. Hope you really enjoy them and learn from them as well. So, of course, that's always the goal of this show, is to bring you the best information that I can, whether it's from myself or my guests, and then to have you learn from and take action on the tips and advice. So without further ado, here is a clip from that episode, which is 244 of the show. With that, let's go straight into the most common mistakes that 3-0 to 4-5 doubles players make. And I have 5 of them for you. So I'm going to go through them, and hopefully they're going to provide a lot of value for you. The first one that I noticed with a lot of players,
is that my opponents have had weak backhand volleys. So if you're going to go to one side or the other, obviously, spacing that's prevalent in the court for you to go to. I mean, if it's on the forehand side, if it's obviously open, just go for it. But if you have to hit to one side, I would choose the backhand volley. They're usually weaker, and specifically the high backhand volley. I find that a lot of players have trouble with that. And interestingly enough, I watched a very excellent video on volley grips from my friend Ryan Reedy from 2 Minute Tennis. And he said that, a lot of players, they use the continental grip for both the forehand and backhand volley. But then a lot of times, especially on the backhand side, that results in a weaker backhand volley because the racket face isn't quite squared up. And so, you do want to try, if you're having that issue, to fiddle with your grip a bit and rotate it to try to square your racket up a little better with the ball. It's totally okay to not have a pure continental for both your forehand and your back. And in fact, Ryan mentioned that you can rotate your grip, one way for the forehand volley and then the other way for the backhand volley. I guess if you're a righty, you'd rotate a bit to the right of the continental grip, and then for the backhand volley, a bit to the left. But anyways, I have found this out because, just for instance, my previous match, I played a 9-5 match against a 5-0 and a 4-5 player. They're very, very good players, but I think it was 2 or 3 points in a row that I or my partner just cracked, a big shot at the net player who was the 4-5, and he, hit those volleys all out. And, I can remember this countless times, just players having their backhand volley as the weakness. So again, I would definitely try that as a strategy against your opponents. Obviously, not every single opponent is going to have a weaker backhand volley, but that's my observation, and I think you should definitely test it out. This next one was super interesting to me. This also came from our previous match, and so my friend and partner Derek and I, we ended up winning 6-4, 6-1. It was great. And this was really funny to me, actually, and it helped me hit amazing returns, and it may not be what you think, right? So I started paying attention to the signals that between the server and the net partner. So, 4-5 and above, and hopefully, below as well, but much less so. The net partner will give the server signals on first where to hit the serve, and then second if the person's going to poach or stay, okay? And what I noticed was that, and I wonder if my opponents are listening to this. I know at least one of them has listened to the podcast before, but I noticed that if the server said yes to the net partner's signal for the serve location the first time, then the serve went to my backhand. However, if the serve said no to the first signal and then said yes to the second signal, the serve would go out wide to my forehand. And so I was playing on the deuce side for reference, and I'm a righty. So again, net partner gives a signal, server says yes, then I was able to immediately say, okay, this is going to the backhand. So I would split, and then I'd be able to just go to the left without hesitation. And I noticed this in one of my opponents, the 4-5 player, actually, in his, I think about his third service game. And so I started anticipating correctly each time. So I was just able to crack my returns. I remember, several of them just moving forward, split stepping, and then moving forward to the backhand and just swinging with authority. And, the server just couldn't do anything and just missed the shot off my return, or just the same thing, moving up, split stepping, then going diagonally to the right for the slice serve, and cracking that forehand, which is, my favorite thing to crack there, to hit hard. I know I keep saying crack, but anyway, I'm not suggesting anything here. But that was a big key to breaking my opponent's serve and just having, I think, I don't know that this person lost confidence necessarily, but getting in their head. And in fact, this did happen because on a changeover, that same opponent, the server, asked me if I was able to telegraph his serves. And then I said, I think I'm just taking some lucky guesses here and just trying to guess as to where you're serving. And I'm being right. And then to which he correctly replied that it sounded like BS. And he was definitely correct. So I didn't divulge that like, oh, hey, bro, I know you're, what you guys are calling, but obviously not, you got to keep those to yourself. But, maybe him and his partner will find out by listening to the show. Who knows? We do have a lot of listeners, a humble brag. But anyways, and the thing here is, and you might do this too. And I remember one of my best friends, Victor, also mentioning this previously in a block time practice of mine. A lot of players will fall in the pattern of just calling the same signals every single time in order, right? So for instance, if I'm the net player, like every single time I'm just calling backhand signal first. If I get a no, then I'll call forehand. And then if I get a no, I'll call body. So I would, first of all, highly encourage you to pay attention to this like I did, because it helped me so much. And secondly, if you're the net player, to just call different signs as well, mixing it up, So if you're the net player, your first signal sometimes is slice out wide, but then other times to that same player who's returning, it's you call body first or you call backhand first. So then they can't always guess correctly. And then sometimes if they try to guess, your partner will ace them, hopefully. So yeah, mix it up there, but the tells that are dead giveaway. And I do wonder if this is the case ever on the pro tour, but this also could be why a lot of times they communicate first, or maybe they just talk to each other and tell each other the play. That's another solution, is you just talk to your partner and say what you're going to do. Although I do like to then give the signals for reassurance, because there's been a couple times where we've chatted and then, we've mixed it up for whatever reason. But anyways, I hope that you enjoyed that one. I thought that was a fun one to observe and to let you know about. The third most common mistake for 3-0 to 4-5 doubles players is that they're unable to handle dippers for volleys. And, I don't know, maybe it's unfair to say it's a mistake. It's more just like a weakness. But, they just don't have the net skills, the ball tracking and the technique required to handle dipping ground strokes while they're at the net. In my 9-0 mixed doubles match, I was doing this a lot this past weekend. I actually had the 9-0 mixed doubles match, and then an hour later, the 9-5 doubles match. And that, those both went really well. I won 2 and 3 for the mixed 9-0, and then 4 and 1, like I said, for the 9-5 men's doubles. So, the majority of players, especially in this match that I played there in the 9-0 mixed, will either miss this shot or they'll pop the ball up, especially if you put a lot of spin on your dipping shots. Both players that I played had a pretty classical style in terms of hitting flat ground strokes and coming to net, and they had a hard time handling spin. So I was able to, hit these heavy dipping balls to where they would either miss it quite a bit, a fair bit of the time, or they would just pop it up for my partner to hit or for myself to just hit a forehand. So I would definitely practice this skill of hitting low dipping ground strokes against your opponents, especially if you play a lot of doubles, because it's really going to help you seize back control in rallies when your opponents are at the net. It's just a really tough shot in general. I mean, it's not easy for me either. It takes a lot of concentration and, discipline with your technique, especially if you don't do it all the time in order to make these shots. So that is the third one. The fourth most common mistake that I see, that's a huge one, is that the players do not incorporate enough poaching, I formation, or Australian, especially at 3-0 and 3-5 and 4-0 too. And then 4-5, you start to see it more. But, disrupting the rhythm of your opponents and having them wonder where they should hit their shots is a hugely important advantage. But most doubles players just play the standard formation, one up at the net, one back, and just no crossing, no nothing. And they don't take advantage of the different formations that I mentioned, like I formation, Australian, also regular poaching, and fake poaching as well. And so here are a few ways that I use these plays to my advantage. I mean, for the poach, obviously, I use this against players that tend to hit cross court on the return most of the time. And, by poaching, I cause a lot of pressure to be put on the opponent at the baseline or the returner, whoever, when they're engaged in a cross-court rally with my partner. And this makes their cross-court window smaller, and it can also create errors when the opponents try to go down the line when they're wary of you crossing. Or obviously, you're going to be able to pick off their cross-court shots or their cross-court return. And then also, I love using this on big points when I know the opponent is going to play conservatively and hit cross-court. I mean, I remember telling the story about, I think in a 9-5 men's combo, I think it might have been a while ago now, actually, but, I poached on both points at 8-7 and 9-7 because in these crunch time situations, a lot of times players, especially if they're conservative, they're not going to go for a down the line, winner because, first off, they're going to feel like it's not a percentage play. And then second off, it'll be, correlates, but, it'll be like a big waste, or they'll feel bad if they went for this huge shot at such a tense time. So at that, in that match at 8-7 and 9-7, I just poached and I picked off both returns. So, unless they're, at a high level and they're able to hit a really good cross-court return, chances are you'll be able to pick it off. At least if, if it's off a first serve or even sometimes a second serve if you have good hands. And then the fake poach, I love using this, especially if the players know that I tend to poach. Then I try to sell that I'm going to poach by moving early to the opposite side, just briefly, obviously. And then I'll move back to my starting position to try and hopefully get an easy volley. So that's the fake poach for you. And then, at least for me. And then with the Australian formation, I love using this to allow myself or my partner to hit forehands on the ad court. And the same can be done for a lefty in the deuce court. And just to explain this one with Australian, it's that basically, like, if I'm serving to the ad side, my net partner, instead of being in the normal position in the ad court, my partner will also be instead of my net partner being in the normal position in the deuce court, they will be on the same side as me. They'll also be on that ad side. And then once I serve it, I go to the deuce side. So, and that way I get to hit a forehand. So I've seen some players who have weak backhands do this, but even if you have a good backhand, it's fantastic if you have a strong forehand to do this, so that you just serve, your net partner stays on that same side as you, and you go to that other side and hit forehands. And then also, what this also does is it allows you to take away an opponent's cross-court return. So if they have a really good cross-court return, whether that's the backhand cross-court, serving to the ad side, or whatever return that they have that's cross-court that they're hitting well, if you all of a sudden just put your net partner, in the same side as you, then the opponent's not going to be able to return cross court unless they want to just crack it at your partner and see what they do. And then you can even, make it more level them, so to speak, and then have your partner, after you do a few Australians, maybe you have your partner actually poach from the Australian position and then you stay on your side. So that could be interesting. And then with the I formation, that's where both you and your partner are at the center hash, but obviously, as you serving, you're on the baseline center hash, and then your net partner is at the net in the center, crouching down, and then your net partner will signal to you, or you can talk beforehand, either or you can do both, and then your net partner, or you'll both decide which way the net partner will go, which way you'll go, and which way you're going to serve. Obviously, the net partner just has to say where they're going, and then you go the other side, the other, section of the court where they're not going to be. And then you go from there. So, for example, we're both in the middle. My partner says, serve to the backhand, and he's going left. So then I go right. And then in that way, you cause maximum confusion because, you're both starting in the middle of the court, and then your returner has no idea where the net player is going to go and where you're going to go, especially if you time your movements correctly and you don't give it away too early. So those are fantastic formations that you should definitely try out, and just don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of, messing it up or whatever, or just keep practicing it. And also obviously practice it in your doubles matches. These are really, really helpful plays. They have made the difference over and over again. I can remember countless times where, My partner and I have just played regular formations, got broken, or we're down 15-40, and all of a sudden, hey, let's try these formations, and then boom, we get a couple errors, we pick them off a couple times, and we've won the game. Whereas if we just kept it going the same way, then our opponents, keep with their rhythm, and we get, we lose, we get broken, and so forth. So these are huge difference makers. I'm telling you, strategy is everything. All right, this next clip comes from Jonathan Stokey, who I actually just had on last week's show. However, this particular clip comes from episode 241, which was part 2 of my first interview with Jonathan. So obviously the very first episode was 240, so I definitely encourage you to check out both of those episodes, as well as last week's if you haven't yet. But this one, we will talk about what to do when you're not playing well, and the biggest mistakes that tennis coaches make, and just overall a lot of great tips to help you succeed in tennis. So I think you're going to really enjoy this one from Jonathan. And without further ado, here is that clip. I guess so far, can you highlight maybe like one or two of your favorite conversations, or just like in general, like topics that you've been talking about with a couple of your guests?
Craig's episode, the third episode, he's been on a ton of podcasts before, but he gives so much incredible information about the first 4 shots, coming to the net. Those are things I encourage everyone to pay attention to. Saviano had a good little tip at the end. It was actually a response to an Instagram question. And the question was, what do you do on days when you're not playing the way you normally do? And his response was, you don't lose your talent. So when you're not playing well, you're not playing well, it's not like you woke up and all of a sudden you're incapable of hitting the same way. Like something has changed. So you can problem solve. And usually what that something is a mindset, and you're not kind of in that flow state. But I really like the way he presented it, because I think that's the panic from a lot of people. Oh my God, what's going on with my serve? Why isn't it here today? Well, you've hit 1 million serves. You know how to serve. What's different is you're probably a little tense today. You're probably really worried about the outcome. And so he gave some great advice on how to get back in the present, thinking about your targets, split stepping every time, something that just gets you into the now, so you're in a little bit more of a flow state. But I really like the way he just it's true. I mean, you don't just lose your talent overnight. So there's a reason why you're not hitting it as well. Take your time, calm down, start with your mentality, and then kind of go from there. I thought that was a great one. And then, on the player side, Jesse and Rajiv, I find it interesting. They talk about, nerves and doubting themselves. And Rajiv was kind of like, man, I like being nervous. Like, that means I care, nice. And I think that's something that so many people run away from. I don't want to be nervous. That's a bad thing. Nerves are bad. Oh my God, I got so tight. I got so nervous. And, nerves mean you care. And then you manage how that affects your performance, right? You channel that into something positive. But I really liked his perspective as well on that's something that he's excited that he still has at age 37.
Love that. Yeah. And a lot of great advice there. And again, it shows the quality of the information being put on your podcast. So definitely one to listen to. Yeah. Nick's answer reminded me about, have you heard of David Goggins before?
Yep, certainly have.
Yeah. I kind of want to imitate him, but I won't. But he has this this cookie jar method, which reminded me of Nick's advice about that you don't lose your talent. I mean, it's kind of related. I guess it's like, when you're going through a tough time, you kind of go into the cookie jar, and what you're doing is you're like remembering previous victories, or in this case that, you're able to execute on things. And that can really help you kind of reset yourself. So
really I like that. I haven't heard that one. That's good.
Yeah. His book is really good. Really interesting. Good stuff. So in terms of your future plans and everything, like what's kind of next for you?
It's a great question. I'm definitely going to continue with the podcast and the Instagram stuff. But again, like I told you, I started the Instagram with no plan. Like it's not a business for me. It's like, oh, cool, I've got followers, but I don't really know where I'm going with that. I'm going to keep putting out hopefully content that helps people. the podcast, I definitely plan on continuing to do and continuing to learn myself and hopefully sharing that with other people. As a coach, I mean, at the end of the day, like what I'm really passionate about is coaching. And I hope that comes through in the podcast or my videos or just the kids I work with, but it's not work for me. I don't feel like I work right now. So I'll
Love it.
continue to coach. I've got a bunch of good players that I work with privately, a bunch of nice kids I work with kind of in a group setting. And that's really where my passion is. So, you know, I still see myself being on court 8 to 10 hours a day. And, you know, they always make fun of me. I mean, I shouldn't get as excited as I do when I see little improvements. Like they're not even excited. And I'm like, man, your serve, man, it looks so much better. And they're like, really? That makes you that happy? And I'm like, yeah, sadly it does.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool.
I'm gonna keep coaching, you know, the juniors and spending time out there. And, you know, we'll see what happens with the podcast and the Instagram if that turns into anything different. But yeah, just continue coaching and enjoying it.
And I'm curious what your like how you are able to get yourself going. Like obviously we don't wake up every single day like with 100% energy and all that. So like on days where might be tough for you, what do you do to get yourself in the proper mindset?
It's a good question, and I would say this isn't by choice. I think it's just how you're wired. I don't have many days like that. I really don't. I
Nice.
don't wake up and go, man, I got 10 hours today, man. Like, oh, that's tough. I have days where I'm physically tired. I mean, standing on court. So right now, my normal schedule is 7 to 9 and in the morning, and then like 11 to 6 or 11 to 7. And so it's
Mhm.
10 hours. It's 7 to 7. I get there, it's dark. I leave, it's dark. It's a lot. There's a lot of people out there that do that. And sometimes I'll wake up tired. The good news for me is like once I see the kid, if they're motivated, I instantly have energy.
Nice.
And so when the kid brings that, it's like there's no way I'm ever going to be tired with a motivated kid. So they kind of fuel me. Like I can't even take credit for that. Like when they come out at 7 in the morning and they're excited, I'm like, man, this is great. Let's go. I'm immediately awake. So I think I get a lot of that from the kids.
Mm. And then what do you do if your kid is not motivated? Like, do you do anything in particular to get them motivated?
It's interesting. I've heard coaches kind of go both ways. Like, is that the coach's responsibility to motivate the kid? Or is that the player's responsibility to bring their own motivation and their own attitude? I tend to be on the second side of that. I expect you to come motivated. And like you said, I mean, most coaches, okay, you have to motivate yourself too. And then I have to figure out how to get you better. And if I also have to figure out how to get you to try, well, what's your job? Like, what do you do in the whole process? So,
Yeah.
where I stand for it is like, hey, you show up ready to work and trust that I have thought about your game all night long and I took down notes and I'm showing up at your lesson and I'm going to try to give you the best hour you can. And if you're not motivated, there's a good chance we probably won't be working together because number one, that's going to be an energy drain for me. And I only have so many hours and I'd like to coach people who are motivated. And it's not like there's no hard feelings there. It's just, I'm not looking, you can't get better without that motivation. So if I'm teaching you a lesson and I know we can't get better, then what are we doing out there? So the good news for me is all the people I work with right now have incredible motivation. They have great attitudes. They all want to learn. So I don't really have that problem. But I rely on them to bring that themselves.
Definitely agreed there. So, in terms of like coaching, have you seen any like big mistakes? Like, I guess I'll reframe it. What are the biggest mistakes that you've seen coaches make?
Ooh, good question. And I'll just have to think about what I do all the time where I cringe. I think over coaching is a big one. That's one I have to stop myself. I always want to help. I always want to say something. Sometimes you just need to shut up. The kid knows what they did. Let them work it out themselves. You don't have to say something every time. I think that's a big one. Just always feeling like you need to say something. Another mistake I see in coaching is just a lack of preparation. I mean, if a lesson shows up and you don't have a plan for what you're going to do, I think you're already behind the 8 ball. And I've had kids before say, "Oh man, you planned our practice." And I'm like, "Well, who doesn't?" Like, you don't need to tell me who your coach was that didn't, but man, that's kind of shocking. Like, you got to show up with a plan. You got to spend time outside of that lesson looking at the stroke or looking at their match and really spending time figuring out what's going on. So when you get to that hour, you can get right into it and maximize your time. The only other thing I'd say, and again, this is something I'm guilty of, is just keeping everything completely on the process. So what does saying good shot mean? Like, why did I even say that? Like, now I'm just making the kid think about the outcome of the point instead of maybe I could applaud the process. Hey, great footwork. Great job getting in position there. Oh, and they hit a winner. Okay, but I don't need to necessarily applaud them for that. Or, hey, great pre-shot routine. That was awesome. And sometimes I will fall into the habit of just saying, oh, great shot, great point. And, I think back to myself and I go, wow, what a great comment. What a great coaching comment. You said great point, super, super instructive. So I think applauding the process is a big one, not over coaching for sure. And then just making your show up with a plan and you're prepared.
Yeah, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So as far as your process for preparing, what is it?
So a lot of times, I get home at night, usually after 7, I look at the schedule and go, okay, I've got these 4 lessons. So I sit down and I have my notes from their last lesson. Hey, what did we work on? How did it go? Did I say anything that resonated with them? Oh, okay, we talked about this. That's great. I might have watched them in the group play points and see something that popped up. And I go, okay, I want to make sure I allocate 15 minutes of time for that. If it's a technical thing the kid's working on, I'll go back and look at the video from the last lesson and then compare that to previous and go, okay, yeah, I want to make sure that, they keep thinking about this. But I really just sit down there. I'll make a note on my phone and I'll go, okay, Logan, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work on taking the ball on the rise for the first 10, 15 minutes. And then we're going to work on your transition volley footwork. And then we're going to work on your overhead. And then we're going to go to serves. And, the one thing I'm terrible at is sticking to a time. I'm like every other coach. I say, hey, 3 more balls and it turns into 30. And I hate myself for that, but it's what I'm doing. And, but yeah, I kind of use that process. I just sit down and I think for 10, 15 minutes about each kid. And then I'll plan the group practice kind of similarly and go, hey, what's something that every kid needs to get better at today? We need to do more overheads and lobs. Okay. We're going to do 20 minutes in the beginning on this drill. And then we'll work that same theme into points where they come into the net more so they get some live reps with that stuff. So really just I spend a lot of time thinking about it. And like I said, it's not work. So to me, that's fun. It's like watching TV. I'm sitting there at night. I'm going, man, how am I going to get this kid better tomorrow? It's fun for me, legitimately.
That's so cool. I love to hear that. I wish all coaches were like that. It's kind of like a very niche, or I don't know how to term it, very specific question, but like, what do you use to take notes? Is it like a notebook or your phone, like some app? Like, what do you do with that, or how?
I'm at the point now. I mean, like you said, I'm not tech savvy, but like if I handwrite something, like my wrist will cramp in like 3 minutes. Like I can't remember the last time I like hand wrote something. So I am pretty organized. So like I have folders on my computer. I typed out what the practice was. I might go back and make a little note. That drill worked well. The kids hated this drill. They didn't understand it, or I didn't explain it correctly. So I kind of have a list daily. I could go back and say, hey, what did I do with Vivian on February 7th, 2021? We did these drills. Got it. And so I just have it on my computer. I type it up. It holds me accountable. I think coaches can get lazy and you fall into, I've done these same 4 or 5 drills now for a month. Like, no wonder the kid is bored and not engaged. Like, I've got to mix it up. But I just type it up, keep it in folders so I can recall. And, that system's worked pretty well for me.
Very nice, Jonathan. And then in terms of the fitness for your students, I'm curious, how much of that do you handle versus how much of that are you outsourcing, or having the student just go to a strength and conditioning or other fitness coach?
So I coach at a Sneed Farm that's in Sneed Farm Country Club. That's Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. We have a small academy there, Rise Academy, which actually we have a bunch of really good national players actually for how small it is. But we have a local track coach from Charleston Southern. She comes out and she kind of works them out with some speed stuff. A lot of them go to their own personal private trainers. But one thing I learned, I got to do 3 summers in Las Vegas with Gil Reyes for a USTA college camp. Nice. And he's amazing. And he would tell me stories about Andre and kind of how he used to train. And he told me a story that Andre went to see Carl Lewis and, hey, Carl, how can I get faster? And so Carl came and watched him. And Andre was like, okay, we practice. And now I go run these sprints and I do X, Y, and Z. And Carl was like, well, why would you run sprints? Like, what were you doing in practice? Like, your practice wasn't good enough. It wasn't intense enough. And that one hit home for me. Like, of course, you're going to do off court stuff. But the best way to learn a tennis specific movement is just to do it with intensity while you're practicing. Like, why? Yes, you need some extra, but if you feel like, man, I'm not getting anything out of my tennis workout, then you might need to re-examine that workout. But we do outsource it. I don't do any of that. I think there are people that know far more than I do, and I want to spend my time on court with what I'm better at, which is helping them with their serve or their tactic or their emotions, and then leave a professional, to work on their speed or whatever. And I'll give my input if people ask what I see on the court. But I think it's better to, there are people that know far more than me about that stuff.
Got it. So it's just kind of specific to like amateur 3-5 to like 5-0 tennis players. But if you could kind of package, it's kind of tough. But like, what's your advice for, strategy for amateur players? Like, what if there was some sort of philosophy or approach that you could tell them to pursue? Like, what would that be?
In terms of singles or doubles?
Oh yeah, of course I should have said that. Let's go with singles and then let's tackle doubles after that.
Okay. So at the 3-5 level, especially, but even up until 5-0, I tell my people to quit trying to do so much. Why are you so obsessed with hitting deep in a corner? Like, why do you think you have to make your opponent miss? They're going to miss for free in 4 shots. Like, you don't have to, all you got to do is just give them the chance by making it. So I'm very big on like the baby step. Like, can you make your serve and not double fault? Great. That's step 1. Can you make your +1 ball? Great. They might complain that it wasn't fast or deep enough. I don't care. If you make 2 balls, that's pretty good, And so my advice to them is always to just, you don't have to do so much. Like, you don't have to think that you've got to hit these amazing shots. Your average shot is really good. Just put it in play, pick a big target, move your feet, and be very comfortable hitting a ball 1 square out of the sweet spot that lands on the service line. That's a good shot. I'm not going to lie and tell you it's an amazing shot, but it's a really good shot. And I think once people understand that and they go, oh yeah, you're right. Like, I love when they walk off the court and they're like, I didn't play that well, but I won. And I always say, no, you didn't hit the ball well, but I'm assuming you played well, because that means you competed, you used the right strategy. There's a big difference there. And for me, those are the rewarding matches. Man, I won the match, but I didn't hit it well. Hitting it well is kind of like the bonus, and that feels good and it's more fun. But just making balls, keep it simple. Quit trying to feel like you need to do so much. I got to hit winners on my 4-0 opponent. You don't. They're going to miss. They're going to give it to you. Just let them.
Yeah. You reminded me of because I taped and put one of my singles matches on YouTube. It was just a set, and I was watching, and I was like, not really doing anything special here. Like, nothing looks amazing at all, but found a way to win. But it doesn't. Yeah, it's it's not that complicated, I guess. And then in terms of doubles, what's your advice there?
It's a good question. There's lots of different ways to play. I would say similarly, you want to make the first 2 balls. A little bit of a difference for me in doubles, though, is I'd much prefer you to be on offense after the server return, especially as the level goes up. So it's really tough to be at the net if your partner has a weak serve. And it's also tough to go up to the net when your partner is floating a short return, because now you're kind of a sitting duck. So I do think in doubles, it's a little more practical to think offensively, but you still have to balance it, because you don't want to go so reckless that you're missing so many balls. And that's kind of where your own level of awareness has to go. Man, is my risk worth the reward? But in doubles, for sure, you want to be on offense when the serve and the return are finished. Am I on offense? And if you are, you're probably doing pretty well. And if you're on defense, that's kind of going to be tough sledding. So, attacking second serve returns, using your first serve as a weapon, those 2 are big. The other thing I would say is there's lots of ways to play doubles. So at Duke, we had 2 players, and they weren't great volleyers, they weren't great servers, but they had awesome ground strokes. And we said, okay, you guys can go to the net to pick up a ball when you miss one in the net. Other than that, You're going to serve and stay back. You're going to return and stay back. And at first, they really didn't like it. And they went like 9-1 at 3 doubles in the ACC. And these teams would come and play them and just implode. And so play to your strengths. You know, if you're a good volleyer, by all means, get to the net. But if you go, man, my volleys stink and my forehand's awesome, guess what? Stay back and crack forehands at people. That's an awesome way to win, you know? So don't get pigeonholed into thinking there's one way. Play to your strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree more. Yeah, that's my game pretty much, like your number 3 doubles team. You know, just kind of cracking forehands. That's kind of, you know, after I serve, which is not classic, obviously, way of doing things. But, you know, a couple of things that have helped me so much are just kind of you know, my movement, like even off the ball, and just being more aggressive, like when I'm at the net, putting pressure on the individual, like even if I don't get a racket on the ball, you know, just the moving part makes them think. And then also just calling more plays and varying up the different formations has really helped a lot. But yeah,
one thing with doubles that we talked to our kids yesterday about was, you know, let's say you're in a 1-up 1-back situation, whether it's a serve or return, and you see the ground stroke person. Let's say I'm at the net and you're on the baseline about to hit a ball, right? And I see that you're in trouble. Well, where do I think you're going to hit the ball? I think you're going to try to go to my baseline partner, right?
Yes.
Cross court. Okay.
Yes.
So then why am I not poaching? If I'm convinced you're going to go cross court, like, and I know the ball's going there, why do I not want to be where the ball is? And then conversely, right? Like, well, what if you got a short ball and you're in the court facing me? Where do I think you're going to go? I think you're going to try to hit me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to back up a step and I'm going to get my backhand volley ready to go. And it's going to be like a ball feed. It's actually going to be really easy. So I think just paying attention, and if you find yourself in that situation and you don't want the ball, that's where you have to ask yourself, number one, do I want to go work on my volleys more? Or should I just back up to the baseline? Because if you know the ball's going cross court and you don't want to poach, that's telling you something.
This next clip features Coach Emma Doyle, who I've had on several of my summits and on the podcast. And she is going to talk about the first 2 traits that all champions have in common and the source of everyone's ambition, where that comes from. And this comes from episode 239, which is called The 5 Traits That All Champions Have in Common. So I hope you're really getting a lot of value from this one as well. And here it is.
I guess if you could package it again, like how do you unlock a person's potential to maximize their own performance? Would you say?
That's a deep reservoir question. I don't think there's any simple answer, but I think in terms of what we are talking about today, the 5 championship traits that I'm about to reveal, everyone can access these traits. So if you want to unlock your potential, I invite you in a moment to think about how these traits show up in your life to unlock that potential within you. Because in my TEDx talk, one of my quotes is, it's not the person with the prettier technique who wins. It's often the person with the stronger character.
Yeah.
So if you want to unlock the potential that lives within you, how can you strengthen your character? And one of the ways is to compare yourself, have an honest assessment. I mean, no one needs to know your answer, or maybe share it with your coach. But these 5 traits will really, I think, link in nicely with understanding that.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be keys, individual keys, I think. But before we go to that, Emma, I'm curious about if you could give us an example of a company that understands the importance of adopting a champion mindset.
Yeah, I would love to. So I have the fortunate experience of, in chapter 3, moving into executive coaching, and I was coaching one of the managers at Uber. Company Uber.
Very cool.
And a great company. And I was looking at their values. They just redid their values last October. And I absolutely just really resonated with their values. They're catchy. They have tangible behavioral traits linked to each value. And interestingly, especially based on the topic that we're talking about today, their number 1 value is bring the mindset of a champion. So they acknowledge that if we understand what champions have in common and how you can bring that mindset back to their company, that's what is their number one value. And more specifically, I'll read out exactly how they define that. Is our ambition is what drives us to achieve our mission. How we define a champion mindset isn't based on how we perform on our best days. It's how we respond on our worst days. We hustle, embrace the grind, overcome adversity, and play to win for the people we serve because it matters. And they also, I invite everyone to check out the rest of the values. You know, two of the others that come to mind are great minds don't think alike and see the forest and the trees. So just a couple of other little values there that are so catchy, and they really are serving the greater good and the population. And if you even look at how they define their values, it's basically the mindsets we embrace. I don't remember exactly, but the choices we make and the actions we take, or something along those lines. So they understand that it's not just once you've got the mindset of a champion, then you can make a choice so that you can take action, which I'm all about. Action is far greater. Taking action on just listening to this podcast and taking even one of the 5 traits and doing something about it is the difference between people who are successful and those who aren't.
100%. So the first part of the mission statement, our ambition is what drives us to achieve our mission. I'm curious, how do we get ambition, or where does it come from? Because I feel like that's a lot of people even lack that. They feel unmotivated and so forth. So where do we get the ambition from?
Well, this is actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because I can't begin to tell you in the last couple of weeks how many times that's come up in terms of in the workplace. Leaders are overwhelmed, exhausted. They're struggling with their energy. And even back in Australia, some of the clients I'm working with, they've just come off summer holidays and they're coming back to work exhausted. So one of the big things around that, I'm going to say quite simply, is even the best players in the world have a coach. If you are struggling with your energy, and that's one of the things that I coach on is energy, you probably imagine why. It's always come to me naturally. However, I have to work at it. This is the thing with energy and energy management, because energy is tapped into your ability to take action. And if your ambition is too vague, or you don't really have a specific direction and a purpose and a mission that you're going towards, then your energy will struggle. One day you'll feel motivated, the next day you won't. It's a bit like New Year's resolutions. They're great for about the first month, and then that's it, because there has to be an emotion tied to the ambition. So make sure that you get a coach, and make sure you work with that coach to focus on something that's bigger than you. The minute you have something bigger than you, so it's not just I want to move from a 4.0 to a 4.5. Okay, well, that's great. But if you can attach an emotion to that, how that's going to make you feel, or if you could be in service to the club, because that's going to increase, the club membership, or that's going to help you feel like you're a part of the club. So, belonging's the fourth human need, such an important trait. So if you can connect to something higher and work with a coach to do that, that will really align with a higher purpose.
Emma, what would you say that yours was, like when you were playing tournaments and all that?
My ambition?
Yeah.
So now you're asking me to go back into the pre-coaching chapter, turning back the clock. It was definitely the moment, well, with my tennis playing career, interestingly, I at 12s wasn't that great. So I never represented my local region, right? But I didn't represent my state. I didn't represent my country. But the one thing I did at 12s is I kept playing. I really enjoyed, so there was an enjoyment of the sport. And it was because the club environment was so fun to be at. We could rock down to the club and we could practice with players, interestingly, just a total side note, but my best friend from Australia, who I've known since I was 8, we grew up playing tennis together. He's actually arriving to Denver tomorrow to come and see me. And so we've been lifelong friends since we were 8, and he's coming to town. I wonder if we'll get on the tennis court, actually, see how he feels. But he then went on to, side note, played for the Dallas Mavericks and then the Chicago Bulls and in the NBA and the NBL. So he didn't take up basketball until he was 17. So he was a high performance junior. So there was this amazing club environment. And then what happened was I actually wasn't that tall and wasn't that strong, but then I slowly caught up in size as in my teens while everyone else was sort of dropping out. So all those early specialized tennis players who were killing me in the 12s, they were either quitting tennis or they weren't enjoying it as much. And I was just loving it. So there was that emotion because I was getting better, because I was getting stronger, tall, etc. But the moment that I came to America to play college tennis was the moment that I realized what my ambition in tennis was. And that was to play for my team, to represent my team. And like when I coached for the Australian junior, when I put on the Australian tracksuit, there's no greater emotion to represent your country or to represent your club. And so what always drives me is the harnessing the energy within individuals to bring out the best within a team.
Love that. So Emma, I'm curious now to really want to jump into those traits. I want to ask you what are the champion traits and also the corporate parallels as well.
Fantastic. Thanks for asking. So just to let you know where these came from, I have had, as you know, I also run a podcast, the coaching podcast, and one of the guests, we interview one sports coach and then one business coach each week, and we release episodes every Tuesday. And one of the coaches who I interviewed was Darren Cahill. And I think he is a fantastic coach and commentator. I love listening to him commentate. And so he did a presentation that really intrigued me, which was so this is the top 10 male and female tennis players share in common. And when he did that presentation, I began to look at my own experience. And I thought, gee, these 5 traits, they really resonate with me. I really believe in them. They were also what I believe is important in the corporate world, the parallels within the corporate world. So the first one is work ethic. Now, in speaking to Darren about this first trait, it's no surprise that work ethic is the number one trait. And he just reinforced that no one works harder on the tour than Rafael Nadal. And when I took a deeper dive into work ethic, the one thing that these champions share with work ethic is a tremendous ability to have consistent and solid routines and habits. So in the workplace, think discretionary effort. And in this new hybrid form of working, how do you even know if someone's working from home? How do you monitor that? How do you manage their work ethic? It comes back to having solid routines and habits. So that's the first one. What are your thoughts on the first one?
Well, I think natural question is, how do you develop solid routines and habits?
A great question. And it really does come down to looking at your habits, first of all, and perhaps even if you make a list and put down ones that serve you and then ones that are non-resourceful, that don't help you. They don't help you prepare well. And I really invite people to look at the steps that you do right before the habit kicks in. So, for example, I worked with this 4'5" gentleman out of Hong Kong. He was type A personality. He's a lawyer and very just determined with his tennis. And so we identified his pre-match warm-up habit was not serving him because he was always getting off to a slow start. So perhaps you can relate to that, or some other people can relate to that listening. And what we identified is that he would rush from a meeting straight to the club straight to the club, straight to being able to jump on court. And he was so rushed that he wasn't able to think clearly about the match. So when we just blocked out 20 minutes of time and we had him read the newspaper at the club and sit down and have he loved a little espresso. So I said, get yourself a little espresso, get yourself a nice, little bit of mineral water to wash it down. Read the paper. You have to read a part of the paper just to take his mind off work onto something else. And that was an example of a habit. Sorry, beg your pardon. That was an example of a stimulus that we put in front of a habit to help him choose a different way of being. So have a look at what you do right before a habit, especially your positive habits as well. What's the difference between the ones that you do well and the ones that don't serve you? And how can you put something in front of that habit right before you make that decision, or take something away? That might be even just your notifications on the phone. I know I have all my social media in a tiny little box on my phone, so I can't see all those notifications popping up. And the next thing you know, you click on them and then you're down the rabbit hole. So maybe it's something as simple as that helps you then get some time back, because time and how we use time is something that's definitely within a high performance mindset.
Yeah, 100%. The checking the one notification can turn into 30 minutes of mindless scrolling. And so another, I guess, on that topic, I was speaking with Robin Montgomery a couple of weeks ago, who she won the U.S. Open Juniors singles and doubles, which was amazing. And she mentioned that she also struggles with social media as well. But, let's say also with that replacement technique. So a lot of times I think people will grab their phone when they're bored. So like, would we then just kind of try to replace that with like some sort of game or note taking or crossword puzzle or something like that? Is that kind of what we want to do?
Yeah, I think I really, when I used to take junior teams away, we would put social media in as a hobby. So try and think of it like a hobby. So now I'm having social media time, or now I'm going to take the selfie of me at Roland Garros or whatever it might be, and trying to treat it that way, and definitely replacing where you are bored and there's things that you instantly do and you're down that rabbit hole. Maybe it's picking up a book, maybe it's listening to a podcast, maybe it's doing your journaling. But whatever you do, my best piece of advice is to be fully present when you do it. If you're listening to this podcast, yes, you may be exercising, that's fine, or you may be driving, but be fully present with what we're talking about. Because guess what? That is tennis. And when you've got to make a deal in the workplace, if you're not fully present, if you're not fully attuned with the customer in front of you or your team and the vibe of your team members in the workplace, it's not going to serve you well. So you're actually, if you can get out of that habit of just checking it all the time because you're bored and you're filling in time, what other things could you be doing so that, when you do have social media time, go for it. Go down as many rabbit holes as you want, but treat it like a hobby.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like sort of like how people advise others to schedule vacation time and break time and all that stuff. That's what you want to do. On your calendar. I love using Google Calendar.
Because when we spend hours and hours on social media, it's not reality. It's not actually what's happening in other people's lives. And then we just continuously compare ourselves to what other people are doing. And we don't often feel great about that. Even though it's not reality, the brain goes, oh, that person's doing really well, or and you constantly, it's that self-comparison that we need to be mindful of, because you are not your sport. You are not your sport. You choose to play tennis, yes, but that's not who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And the comparison trap. I mean, if you go on Instagram with your tennis friends, like they'll only be posting like the wins for the most part, and then you're in a losing streak, and that might not feel great. But just like Nadal said, he said it would be silly if my neighbor had a bigger house than me to just be upset about that. You're on your own path. So that was a quote I really liked from him. So cool, Emma. How about we go to the second champion trait?
The second champion trait is purpose. Now, if we think about the longevity of the careers of people like Serena and Federer, they don't do anything unless it's with purpose.
Mm.
And especially to maximize their longevity of their career. A lot of younger pros can really benefit from that. And having purpose as a coach is critical. You have to understand why you're doing what you're doing with a certain player. And sure, that the session might go off in a tangent, or you might have a certain purpose, but the player ends up, hey, no, this is what I got out of the session. Fantastic. But having a purpose and understanding your why and why they're doing something, I think is really important. So in the workplace, think about alignment and contribute. In other words, do I feel like I'm engaged with my work that uses my skills and my capabilities? And do I understand how I contribute to the business goals? Because if you don't believe that you know how you are connecting to the bigger purpose, then why would you stay in a job? And of course, I call it the great reevaluation rather than the great resignation. But this is a huge part. Purpose and contribute is super, super important. I think that's very valid for tennis players as well. If they feel like they're aligned with even the coach's values as similar to their values, and they feel like they're contributing to the club that they're a part of, then they'll stay and become a customer for life, or they'll continue to fall in love with this great game of tennis. Purpose.
All right. The final clip for the best of the podcast from 2022 is a discussion with Tara Collingwood. And Tara talks about the 5 best and worst foods for tennis players, the best sports drinks for tennis, how much fluid you need to consume on the court, the best sources of fats, and more. So really happy to be able to have an episode talking about diet and nutrition for this special one. So without further ado, here is a clip from my interview with Tara, and that is from episode 233. Enjoy. And actually, you know what, you mentioned a bunch of different different sports that you've been involved in. I'm curious, is the diet requirements and nutrition requirements vastly different for different athletes in different sports, would you say, or are there more commonalities than differences?
Oh gosh, yes and no. Yeah, there are a lot of commonalities, but there are a lot of differences as well, as you can imagine. So depending on gender, of course, men and women are going to have slightly different needs depending on what kind of sport. So right now I'm actually working with WWE as well, World Wrestling Entertainment. So you can imagine that those athletes are going to be much different. They're huge strength athletes. They're aesthetic athletes. They want to look good. And so, depending on the time, and then on the other spectrum, I work with a lot of triathletes and, Ironman athletes and marathoners and things like that. That's kind of my background is more running and marathon and all that good stuff. So yeah, I mean, the fundamentals of sports nutrition are kind of the same for athletes, but it just depends on the training load, the body type, the performance schedule as well. Certain sports have long off seasons and other sports have hardly any off season. So it really varies a lot with the different athletes I've worked with throughout the years.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, there's so many different questions I have for you here. I guess I'll start with like a top like best foods and worst foods. So just to right off the bat for tennis players, like if there were 5 foods that you would recommend for tennis players that you think would give them a really big boost in performance, I mean, what would they be, if this is like a valid question in your opinion?
Yeah. I love this question. So, you've always heard an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And I, for athletes, like to say a banana a day. So I highly recommend bananas, really all fruit. So if you're allergic to bananas, you hate bananas, you don't have to eat a banana. You can eat a banana, you can still be a good tennis player. But I love bananas because they have that potassium, which of course we lose in our sweat. They're a good source of carbohydrates. They're easy, portable, all that kind of stuff. You can throw it into your tennis bag. So I would start with fruit, specifically with the banana as one of my top 5. I would definitely have to have water if I can include that as a quote unquote food, or just, sports drinks in general, just hydration as a category, because, in the summer, especially in Florida, but really anywhere around the world, anytime you're playing outside under that hot sun, humidity involved, especially, that hydration is going to be really, really important. So whether it's water, whether it's sports drinks, whether it's, other things that you're doing, we need to make sure that hydration is going to be one of those really important things. Let's see. What else do I love? Some kind of protein, obviously, you're going to have. So I'm a big fan of dairy. So whether that's milk, whether that's yogurt, cheese, you can also, of course, do salmon or, other chicken, beef, whatever kind of meats. We always have to have some kind of protein. Obviously, the vegetables need to come in. I'm trying to think of my categories here so I can give you a wide array of the 5 foods. My favorite, probably most nutrient-rich vegetable would be spinach. My personal favorite, obviously kale, broccoli, tomatoes, carrots, whatever. Any vegetable is going to be good as well. So we've got a protein, we've got a fruit, we've got water, we've got... So I think the only thing I'm missing is some kind of grain. So let's see. What's one of my favorite grains? Oatmeal. I love oats. I think oats is going to be a really good thing that you could do for breakfast. You could even do it, as a snack or lunch or dinner. So, getting those whole grains in there and getting some of those complex carbohydrates is good.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Tara. And I have some follow-ups predictably from your answer. So with the oatmeal, is there a difference for us between slow cooked versus the instant? Is there one you recommend over the other?
Yeah, surprisingly, the only difference between a steel cut oat and a quick cooking oat is how thinly they slice it. So it still is a whole grain oat, even if you get the quick cooking oats. Of course, the packet of instant oats is often going to have sugar and flavor and all that kind of stuff added to it. And plain oats needs a little bit of help. I mean, I put a little bit of flavor into my oats, but you can do it with fresher dried fruit. You can, drizzle a little maple syrup on there, or, whatever you like to use to sweeten that up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, ideally we can do the steel cut, oats and all of that. But if you don't have time for that, then the instant oats are just fine. Or you can even do the overnight oats where you just take the oats, put milk. I, of course, want some protein and all the nutrients of milk, whether it's a plant-based milk or the cow's milk, and, put it in the fridge overnight. And then you can either stick it in the microwave and warm it up, or you can just eat it cold and add, again, your favorite fruits or shredded coconut or granola or whatever it is that you like to do to those oats. So yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people want to know that, what's the difference?
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So just kind of be aware of, if you're getting a flavored one, about the sugar content for the instant. Cool. And, big question, of course, is the sports drinks. I've had some companies send me different sports drinks and so forth. But which ones do you recommend? Because I know a lot of people, of course, they've been drinking Gatorade, Powerade, and that does have, quite a bit of extra stuff in there. So what ones do you recommend?
So I do recommend just a general regular sports drink. So whether it is Gatorade or Powerade, or, obviously they're the 2 big ones, but there's lots of other brands out there that are just as good. But just remember that sports drinks have spent millions and millions of dollars on their formulary because that's what works for athletes. So when you water down your sports drink, when you, try to make your own sports drink, they are the right sugar concentration. So sports drinks should be between 6 to 8% carbohydrate. So if you drink apple juice on the court, you're going to get some stomach aches. Sports drinks are sort of a watered down, amount of sugar compared to 100% juice or a soda or something like that for a reason, because that's what's absorbed the best into our gut to give us that performance. They also have those electrolytes in there. So the sodium, potassium, magnesium, that's going to help you with replacing some of those sweat losses. My problem, specifically working with tennis athletes, is a lot of versus, some of the other athletes that I've worked with, especially male tennis players, sweat a lot.
Yes.
Okay. So females do too, but males, just gender, specific, males sweat more than women. You lose more pounds of sweat. You lose more liters of sweat during a workout than a woman does. And that adds up. It doesn't just add up with fluid, but it adds up with those electrolytes. So I'm often recommending for my, crampers, for my people who have a difficult time recovering, especially if you're doing 2-a-day practices, especially if you're in Florida in July, to add more sodium to that sports drink. So you might start with a regular Gatorade and then add some Gator Lights, or, have some kind of a sodium packet or pill or something else that you're adding to that, because it's just, if you just drink more Gatorade, then yeah, the sugar adds up. And you do need some sugar. There's 3 things you need on court: water, or fluid, I should say, some kind of electrolyte, and some kind of sugar. We need some carbohydrate while we're, practicing and performing for 2-3 hours. But, if you just try to meet your sodium losses with more regular sports drink, you're going to get, way too much sugar. So that's where a lot of times either the endurance formula or just another, maybe a different brand, or adding some electrolyte powders to just the regular sports drink might be the thing. So it takes a little bit of tinkering and figuring out what you like the taste of, what works for you. You don't want to taste like the ocean. You don't want it to be like, tasting like salt water, but sodium tastes. So yeah, that's the hard part sometimes is getting that right formula for the player.
Cool. Yeah, that's super enlightening, because I know there's a lot of people who are kind of hesitant about the amount of sugar that Gatorade has, for example. But, as you mentioned, the companies have spent, decades and so forth. So that is the right formula. Unless you need more sodium, then you might have to add some. So, and I mean, what's the difference between like Gatorade and Powerade and something like Noon or Precision Hydration or some other companies? Like what are they trying to, how are they trying to differentiate themselves? Are they any better?
They're just different. So Noon, for example, just the regular Noon is just electrolyte. It doesn't have any sugar in it, or it might have 10 calories, a couple of grams of sugar. It's not enough. Precision Hydration, I've been working with for many years. I actually have one of their salt machines that measures how much sodium you're losing in your sweat. And I love their product because it basically has 2/3 approximately of the amount of sugar, but like 4 times the amount of sodium that's in like a Gatorade or Powerade. So again, but not everybody, if you're a 12-year-old girl, you don't need that much salt, and Gatorade might be just fine for you. So it just really depends on your age, your stage, your sweat rate, your sweat composition. And you don't know your sweat composition unless you get a sweat test and have, someone measure how much salt you're losing in your sweat. So that's the great unknown. But you can, know what your sweat rate is by weighing yourself before and after practice, and then, subtracting out how much fluid that you drank. You can't go to the bathroom in between. Because that'll mess up the equation. But you can, and you have to take off sweaty clothes because all that sweat is still on those clothes. So it is a little bit cumbersome to do a sweat rate test. Truly do it the right way. But even if you just weigh yourself before and after and just kind of get an idea of how much you lost, that's not fat that you lost in the court. That's all fluid. And for every pound that you lose, I recommend trying to get at least 20 ounces of fluid. So if I've got a male that lost 3 pounds on court in the morning, I want him to be back to his weigh-in from that morning before he goes on the court in the afternoon. Because what if you only gain 1 pound back? Now I'm 2 pounds down and I'm starting my practice at 2:00 in the afternoon. Now I'm already behind. So that's the important thing, especially if you're doing 2-a-day practices, is to make sure that in that time in between those practices, you're hydrating. And if you're losing 3 pounds, that you're getting definitely some sodium in either the lunch that you're having and or the fluid that you're using also to replenish in between.
Yeah, definitely hugely important. And I had Andy on from Precision Hydration on one of my summits and podcasts, and he had some good stuff there, and the sweat tests.
Amazing company, and he's amazing. Wealth of knowledge. Good. I'm glad you had him on. He's great.
Yeah, for sure. As are you, of course, or as are you, of course, is what I meant. And how about we transition to the top five worst foods in your opinion that maybe, maybe there's some things that you see players eating that you may cringe at.
Oh gosh. Let's see. Well, my personal absolute gross food is pork rinds, but that's not necessarily a player thing. I just think they're disgusting and can't imagine. So, I hate to always demonize certain foods. I will kind of answer your question, but I hate to demonize foods because my whole thing is all foods can fit as long as you figure out how it's going to affect your performance, how it's going to affect your health, your body weight, and when. So for example, maybe the worst thing to eat before competition would be greasy chicken nuggets and French fries because all that fat is just going to sit in your stomach like a brick. But if you're really jonesing for some chicken nuggets, have it after. So I don't want to say never eat fried food, never have pizza, never have, XYZ, because those things can fit and they can have, good nutritional value to it. Pizza is one of the healthiest things you can eat. You can quote me on that.
Yes. I'm so happy to hear that.
I love pizza, and I think it is one of the best things that you can eat. Now, greasy, nasty, triple meat pizza, quadruple meat pizza, maybe not. But, you can definitely get a good pizza that, think about it. It's the crust is the grain, the tomato sauce is a vegetable. You've got the cheese, which is going to be the protein, plus, of course, the calcium and all that good stuff. So anyway, I kind of have a soapbox about like, don't eat, this particular food. Unless you're allergic, you can eat whatever you want, but you just want to make sure that it's within the balance of what you're burning. And, if you have certain health issues, so if you have high cholesterol, then yeah, lay off the bacon and the fatty meats and that kind of stuff. But if, you're perfectly healthy, then yeah, I can include a pizza. I can include some French fries here and there. I can have some ice cream here and there, but all the time, every day, maybe not. So it's a balance really in what you're doing.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So on the topic of sugar, I know a lot of people have, excessive sugar intake and stuff, but obviously we need it, for our performance. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, at what point should we be like mindful of it versus, intaking sugar? Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, sugar has definitely been demonized in recent years. And again, I don't think it's absolutely the devil, but does it have any redeeming qualities? Just table sugar, not so much. But again, we just talked about how, on court, what I need is fluid carbohydrates, which is basically sugar, because, we want it to get into your system right away. So you're not going to sit there and eat bread on court because we want something that's going to get into your system right away. So, those sugars are going to be, whether it comes from fruit or whether it comes from, the sports drinks that are going to be more of, the different types of sugar that are in the sports drinks. So yeah, sugar is definitely something that every athlete is going to be taking in, whether it's natural sugar in fruit, whether it's added sugar in sports drinks, or whether it's added sugar just in fun stuff that they might have, like the cookies and cakes and that kind of stuff, candy, chocolate, but it's that balance of how much can I have so that it doesn't crowd out healthier foods, but it also isn't in addition to all of the other things I'm eating and then going to potentially contribute to unwanted weight gain. So again, that's where working with, a sports dietitian individually to figure that out as to like, what's my calorie value? What am I eating throughout the day? How many, we call them discretionary calories can I have that I can spend on things that, don't maybe have a whole lot of nutritional value, but have the fun factor. And, as an athlete, you're burning a lot of calories. And so you can have a little bit of fun factor in there and still be able to perform at a really high level.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. And so maybe let's look at the day before, like a match. What should we be thinking in terms of like how we should be eating for that, the day before?
Sure. Yeah. So day before, you always want to be focusing on hydration and getting your glycogen stores. So glycogen stores are your carbohydrate stores, are your energy stores. So we want to make sure that when your toe is on the line and you're ready to hit that first serve, you are full. not stuffed full, I'm going to puke, but full inside your body is full of fluid, is properly hydrated, and is full of glycogen, is full of carbohydrates. So day before, we want to have, a pretty high carb diet and be drinking as much as possible. Avoid alcohol, of course, and fill up more on, fluids and, those foods that are going to give you those carbohydrates. So breakfast, like we mentioned, maybe the oatmeal, bagels, waffles, that kind of stuff. Lunch, definitely having either rice, pasta, potatoes, bread, tortillas, any of those kinds of things are going to be good. Same thing with dinner. That doesn't mean we don't eat anything else. Of course, we want some protein in there, some vegetables, some fruits and stuff too, but making sure that we're not eliminating those carbohydrates, that we're making sure that we're having a good source of carbohydrate throughout the day on the day before competition, and not eating anything that might potentially cause you distress. So that's why the fat just kind of sits in your body. It doesn't really give you performance benefits. So I tend to try to recommend a little bit on the lower fat side day before, day of competition, so that we're not doing the greasy stuff or the really high fat, creamy stuff the day before or day of competition.
Gotcha, Tara. And then, so what are some of those like good sources of fats? Like, I guess one that I could think of, maybe avocados, perhaps, but anything else that you'd recommend?
Yeah. So, avocados, nuts and seeds, maybe putting some peanut butter or almond butter on that bagel or, sandwich or whatever, handful of nuts or trail mix. Those are all, good fats. A little bit of salad dressing or something like that. That's fine. But again, just not the deep fried, not the Alfredo sauce, not the, everything smothered in cheese, that kind of thing.
Sounds so good. But yeah, I'll refrain. I'll refrain. So how about the day of, like, I guess maybe starting with the morning and then like, the meal beforehand, like any differences in versus the previous day?
So did you say day after? What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. The day of the match. How we should be eating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So day of the match, definitely nothing new on match day. So you don't want to go, oh, I've never had a power bar before, I'm going to try this for the first time or whatever. I mentioned power bar just because I had a friend that did this years ago, had one like mid-marathon and had never had one before, and it was not good.
Not easy to ingest.
Yeah. So you always want to eat things that are comfortable. And it's not just because of your digestive comfort, but it's also for your brain comfort. So if I know that I have a banana every morning, of a competition or even every practice day, like I want to have that banana, or whatever. So if I normally have, bagel, or I normally have oatmeal, or I normally have, frosted flakes, like whatever it is, try to stick with those foods that are normal to you, are comfortable to you, that and this is one of the things that I'm always preaching to my athletes is practice what you're going to do in competition during practice. So, if you want to have a banana 30 minutes before the match, then do that 30 minutes before your afternoon practice. See how it sits, see how it feels. What are you going to do during your match in terms of hydration? I have so many tennis athletes that tell me, oh, well, in practice, I do this. And then on match day, I do this. And I'm like, why are they different? Why are they different?
Right.
You should be drinking, eating, whatever, kind of the same things, maybe not the full day, but definitely, during the match. So, if you're going to try raisins during the match, if you're going to, break off a banana during, your rest times, like whatever it is, then, let's try that during practice so that my body can get used to eating that date, eating that raisin, eating that Gatorade chew, eating that, whatever it is that you're going to try doing, or that new brand of electrolyte. Let's make sure that we practice that. And then again, nothing spicy, nothing, again, fried, creamy, all that kind of stuff, so that it doesn't irritate, because you've got nerves, you've got adrenaline, all that can irritate your stomach anyway. You get nervous stomach. So then if I'm eating foods that I'm used to, that are bland, that are low fat, that are comfortable, that's going to be less irritation for my gastric, system. If I start eating, stuff that is like, I don't know, then now nerves, adrenaline, plus unknown food, that's trouble.
Quite the combo there, Dara.
Yeah.
I really like that point actually, because, I have been hearing from coaches that you want to, train like you would play in a match and so forth. But I don't think as many of us think about, the nutrition part of it, of like, eating the same snack as you would as in a match and so forth. Because I think even for me, sometimes I think like, in practice, like maybe I won't have as much of that, supplementary food during a practice, so that during a match, I'll be even tougher, like physically or something like that. But then on the other hand, maybe I won't be used to ingesting as much when I'm playing, then I won't physically feel as good. So I think that's a really, really enlightening point.
Well, and part of it is training your stomach to know what to expect.
Right.
So your stomach knows, okay, here come the raisins, here come the dates, here come it knows like, okay, yeah, I'm used to this. And maybe you don't do quite as much, during practice. It depends on how long that practice is, how intense that practice is. But if I'm going to have a really intense practice today, that's the day to practice more. What am I going to do in competition? A lighter practice day? Sure. Maybe you just get away with doing some sports drink and no, a supplementary other food. So yeah, just kind of see what that practice is like. And maybe on those intense practice days, that's when you practice your competition nutrition a little bit more.
All right. I really hope that you enjoyed this mega episode of 8 episodes, the most popular episodes from the show last year. I want to thank all of my guests. Without them, obviously the show isn't possible in the format that I love the most. And also want to thank myself for that solo episode that I included in there. However weird that is, just always trying to inject crazy jokes here. But it was a great year, and also can't thank you all enough for listening and supporting and sending me kind messages. And it's always so cool when, I'm at a tennis tournament or facility or whatever it is, and somebody says, "Hey, I enjoy the podcast." It's always really cool. So if you see me, definitely would love it if you'd say hi and to let me know what you enjoy and what you want to learn about more. So just to recap again, the episodes that these clips came from, we have episode 238 on the 5 reasons why tennis players can't serve properly with Peter Freeman, episode 270 with Brad Gilbert on how to become a tough competitor, reduce errors, and forget about your losses, episode 235 with Dr. Mark Kovacs on how to create a fitness plan to level up your game, episode 232 on inside the mind of a 5-0 tennis player with Dylan Sykes, episode 244, the 5 most common mistakes that 3-0 to 4-5 doubles players make with yours truly. That's me. Episode 241 on the simple strategies to win more singles and doubles matches with Jonathan Stokey. Episode 239 on the 5 traits that all champions have in common with Emma Doyle. And episode 233 on how to structure your diet for optimal performance with Tara Collingwood. So I highly encourage you to check out, whichever one you think will help your game the most. As you know, my podcast deals with tips on strategy, technique, fitness, the mental game, equipment, and more. So, I would just try to hone in on what areas of my game do I need to improve upon the most. And then you can go to Apple Podcasts, or probably even easier to search. You go to tennisfiles.com/podcast. And then you can search in the big player. There's like a search menu, and you can search for, again, fitness, mental game, strategy, technique, equipment, whatever. Choose whatever you need to improve on the most, and then check out those episodes. So again, thanks so much for listening. And if you enjoy the podcast and find value from it and think that it's helped you improve your tennis game, then I'd highly appreciate very much if you would leave a review for the show. And you can do that at tennisfiles.com/Apple Podcasts, or on your favorite podcast app of choice that you use to listen to the show. I just find that Apple Podcasts is the biggest mover of the show in terms of putting it up the rankings and then having it be more visible to people as a result. So you are helping your fellow tennis players by leaving a review. So thanks a lot for that. And to leave you with a quote, as I often do at the end of the show, this one is by Pablo Picasso. And Pablo said, "Action is the foundational key to all success. So true. So, I mean, it's great if you listened, and really appreciate it if you listened to all, I don't know, like, what is this, 2+ hours of the show, of this week's show. But if you don't take any action from it, then that is not ideal. I would rather you listen less and then take more action. So, all the best with your tennis game. Check out the show notes page for the links to all the shows from here. At tennisfiles.com/283, or again, just check out the show notes in your podcast app of choice, and there will be links there. Thanks so much for listening, and wishing you the best and happiest of holidays. If you're listening to this during the holidays, if you listen to it afterwards, wish you a great new year and all the best. Keep improving your tennis game, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Tennis Files podcast. This is your very loyal host, mehrban signing out.